I take them off, how are you? Right, Mike?
Yeah. Make you ring the bell.
Exactly.
Welcome, everyone, to Truro Town Council's meeting for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Before we begin our agenda today, I, Kathy Henton, Mayor for the town of Truro, acknowledge we are on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties and recognize we are all treaty people. We recognize African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched the part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We recognize the Acadians who live in harmony with the Mi'kmaq, whose communities across the province are a testament to the fortitude of their ancestors who survived the Grand Derangement. Today, as both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, we commit to harmonious and mutually beneficial relations. We give thanks to the elders and knowledge keepers. We are now going to enter into a public hearing this afternoon, and I've just been told that we're going to, council, switch our order of our two applications today. So we're going to start first with a development agreement for two-tier property limit for 245 Roby Street. PID number 20148015. I would ask if the representative for Tier 2 Property Limited is here. If not, please come to the table. Okay, come on down. Just have a seat, and thank you. And if you can just push the little button there, and there we go, and there we go. And can you just identify yourself?
Dave Wallace with Tier 2 Properties.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Has this been advertised, Mr. Dolter?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
And do we have any correspondence?
The application was reviewed by the town's planning advisory committee at their monthly meeting and in June 2025 and in September 2025. The committee concurred with staff reports and recommended that recommendations from Carla Conley, our planner, to permit the proposed amendment. The subject to the application being approved and to the satisfaction of town staff. So it appears before council, and there is a letter from Planning Advisory Committee recommending the approval to council.
Okay, thank you. So we will start with a report from the Planning Department and an opportunity for council for questions and any persons in the chamber to ask questions. Carla Conley is with our Planning Department, and she'll be presenting the report today. All right, Carla, if you will start us.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hinton. As mentioned, this is the development agreement amendment application for the property at 245 Roby Street, which is the mall. Subject lands are approximately 10 hectares in size, or 25 acres in area, but the area of redevelopment that we're looking at today is just a little over 1,000 square meters in the southeastern corner. The property has frontage both on Roby Street and Marshland Drive, as you can see pictured. Lands are within the regional service policy area and are governed by an existing development agreement that has been in place since 1988. Lands are currently zoned regional service zone with a small amount of environmental reserve, which you can see in the top right corner. The entire site is within either the 1 to 20 floodway overlay or the 1 to 100 floodway overlay. Here we have some recent photos of the subject site. So the area of redevelopment is kind of shown with that number 1. That's generally where that site is going to be located. These were taken at the end of September for context. There we go. And another photo, this is taken from Roby Street from the sidewalk facing north, so facing the mall, and the area of redevelopment is in that white square as shown on the existing parking lot. These pictures also give you a little bit of context. Because this is a redevelopment of the parking lot, you get a sense of usage. Now, these were taken on a Monday morning, so site usage will change depending on the day and time. However, this is fairly typical, it is my understanding, for this portion of the parking lot. You see how many cars are parked there. Oh my. Okay, so this application has been going through the standard process for development agreements that we normally do for the town, 4 steps. This is step 3, which is the main public engagement with the public hearing and the decision by council. So we see an overall view of the site. In June of this year, the applicant approached the town and requested permission for a 4th pad site. So the existing development agreement limits the number of pad sites to 3 and has a requirement for a specific number of parking spaces. So an amendment to the existing development agreement is required in order to allow them to do this change. Here we see a rendering of the development proposal. So it's a single-story pad site in that southeastern corner of the existing parking lot. Development will impact 66 existing parking spaces. 22 will be reinstated. However, it will result in the overall loss of 44 parking spaces. Here we see some photos that were supplied by the applicant of a tentative drawing or what this kind of pad site looks like in other jurisdictions and what it could look like here. So as mentioned, this site is governed by an existing development agreement, and it has a section in there that does allow for the amendment. So it must go through the same process as would another development agreement. If it had no development agreement in place, it would follow the same process for an amendment. So planning staff have reviewed the proposal based on the applicable policies found in the town's planning documents, and the areas of perceived or potential issue and consideration included parking, stormwater management, urban forestry, and visual impact. So to address the parking piece, that development agreement, as mentioned, from 1988 requires that the number of parking spaces be calculated based on the leasable area. So it requires 5.5 spaces per 1,000 feet of leasable area. We do have these calculations, and the net leasable space, this is commonly referred to as the area that is the total usable floor space within the building available to each tenant. So it excludes common areas like maintenance areas, hallways, bathrooms, that kind of thing. The proposed pad site will add 1,700 square feet of leasable space and will reduce, as mentioned, the available parking on the overall site by 44 spaces. Site-wide, there's less than the required number of parking spaces available, as would be required by the existing development agreement, which is roughly 15% less than required. However, planning staff support this intensification of the existing commercial site and do not anticipate any negative issues related to the reduced number of available parking spaces, and these are also supported by policies within the town's municipal planning documents. As far as urban forestry and visual impact goes, the town's urban forester has recommended that the property owner add a small landscaped island near the proposed building and develop a planting plan that is phased over 5 years to incorporate more species from the town's approved urban tree list. And this is expected to result in approximately 70 new potential plantings for the site. And planning staff support the recommendations of the town's urban forester. The review was also sent out to other town departments. No issues have been identified other than a statement from the town's engineer's office has been requested from the applicant's engineer just to confirm the stormwater runoff amounts post-development. The updated survey results as of 11 a.m. this morning, there had been 1 response provided. It was opposed. There were no comments given. The updated development sign has been placed on the property and is currently there, and all the updated information is also available on the town's website, as well as a mail-out that was sent out to all property owners within 150 meters of the subject site. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the application by Tier 2 properties to amend the existing development agreement at the subject site, and that would permit the construction of a 4th pad mount site on the property and reduce the overall required parking spaces to a ratio of no less than 4.7 parking spaces per 1,000 feet of net leasable area. Now, keep in mind, this is a change and a reduction down from the 5.5 that's currently required in the development agreement, down to this 4.7. Subject to the applicant submitting a letter from an engineer confirming the amount of stormwater runoff from the site, and that the applicant and the town's urban forester prepare that planting plan that meets the satisfaction of the town's development officer. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Conley. I'm now going to open it up for questions from members of council. Councillor Graham?
Do you mind going back to slide 10? Maybe one more back. I think maybe it was 9 then. Yeah, that's the one. So I think, if I'm looking at this correctly, the back of the building is facing Roby Street. Is that correct?
So where the vehicles from the, maybe it's more clear on the rendering for the site plan here. Let's bring that up. So the vehicles would, the top of the photo is where the vehicles would come in, and then they would exit from Roby Street. So yes, the back, I guess the typical back of the building does face Roby Street.
So I kind of wish I had thought about this during our planning meetings, but I'm just wondering about that facade. Can you, either Ms. Connolly or our developer, talk to me about that facade? What, like, will it be nice on Roby Street?
Yeah, it will be really good looking. The way the motor oil establishments are set up, it almost looks like there's two frontages.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. That was my only question. I thought about it today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Wallace, for being here. I've asked a bunch of these questions, but just so that for the public hearing, people may not have been to or watched the Planning Advisory Committee meetings. We just do a little quick rehash of some of the things that we covered that Ms. Connolly hasn't already. We talked about the stormwater management. I had asked questions about the spillage of oil and things. Can we just go over the applicant's response to those concerns just for the public record in the public hearing?
Yeah, just the fact that these uses have to meet all provincial environmental standards, for sure. If there was a spill for motor oil, it's very slow moving, so a cleanup can happen fairly quickly as well. So there should be no issues whatsoever in terms of environmental.
Right, and then just for capture of regular spillage, I've changed oil. I'm not a professional, obviously, but this is something, spillage is going to happen as long as we're doing regular cleanup to meet environmental protection so that in the event of one of these floods, if it gets into this area, it's not going to contaminate and bring a lot of oil out through the rest of the environment.
Correct, very isolated, yeah.
Perfect. And regarding the parking, we are obviously reducing the parking ratio from 5.5 per 1,000 square feet of leasable down to, I think it was 4.7. We had asked you about that at PAC. What were your responses just in concerns to the loss of parking? I mean, I would assume you're not, if the loss of parking was going to hurt you, you probably wouldn't be making the application, correct?
Correct, yeah, and there's other municipal units throughout Nova Scotia and secondary markets like Bridgewater, New Glasgow, Amherst, where the parking ratio for shopping centers is roughly 3 to 3.5 spaces per 1,000. So still at 4.7 per 1,000, we're up there.
We're
So
still
we
significantly
have
higher than other.
the owners have no
ballots.
concern whatsoever.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure that all of that was on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Wallace. And mine's for the town planning. We talked about this also in PAC, and that's the entrance to the building and the fact that it's, and I wasn't sure from the map, and I can't remember whether it's on the 1 in 120 or the 1 in 100 floodway. Can you just let me know? Is it on the 1 in 100 or 1 in 20?
It may be a portion of each.
Right, okay. So my question has, and we talked about this, but I don't see it in the development agreement. I don't see it in the presentation. And that has to do about building the site up so that it's above the 1 in 100 floodplain, about 3.5 inches above that, the entrances to the building. Is that what's going to take place?
The floodproofing requirements that are listed in the town's land use bylaw would be required, the development would be required to meet those, yes.
And those will be in the, obviously, in the development agreement.
No, we don't, we're not required to have that in the development agreement because the land use bylaw also applies. So when they submit their building permit application, they would be required to meet that. So we don't have to specifically say that in the
Okay,
agreement.
so that's why it wasn't in there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Fleming?
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. I just have a couple comments. One of them is regards to the parking.
I know we had already approved construction of a bunch of apartment buildings on that lot that would take a lot more room than this little business would, so I don't have any concerns there. Same applies with the floodplain. I think we had approved 3 or 4 big apartment buildings here with the previous owners of the building, and this is just a small impact in the bigger, bigger scheme of things. And I do watch the PAC committees. I do recall one where Mr. Wallace thought it was the Parking Advisory Committee, but so I just thought I'd bring that up because I did agree with you on your comment there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Counselor, for your questions. Now going to open it up if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to ask a question to either Ms. Connolly from Planning or to Mr. Wallace. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question? Okay. Seeing none. Okay. Seeing no further questions, I'm going to ask 3 times. Are there any other questions from anyone in the chamber today? Ask number 2. Are there any further questions today for 245 Roby Street? My third and final ask. Any further questions? Seeing none, I declare the hearing for 245 Roby Street is closed. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mr.
Your Worship.
Wallace. Now we're going to move on to a public hearing for 730 Yonge Street, PID number 2048-3244, 2048-3252, and 2048-82998. This is a development agreement application. Has this been advertised, Mr. Dolter?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
Do we have any correspondence?
Yes, we do have a letter from the Town's Planning Advisory Committee, and which states that the committee concurred with the staff report from the planner Jacob McPherson dated May 22nd, 2025, and recommended the council establish a public hearing date and approve the development agreement subject to the submission of a lighting plan and a landscaping plan reviewed by the town's urban forester and accepted by the town's development officer before entering into a development agreement. And that's submitted by the Secretary of the Planning Advisory Committee, dated 27 May 2025.
Thank you. Is the representative here yet?
So the representative is not here, so there was a mix-up with the time.
Okay,
So, we have the option to proceed and see what progress we can make.
okay. Okay. I think we should, do you think we should proceed?
I would, yes. Who is here?
Is there any objection to proceeding with the representative not here? I think we're okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to start with a report from you, and then we'll have a chance for everyone in the chamber to ask any questions. So Jacob McPherson is with our planning department, and he'll be presenting our report today. So Mr. McPherson, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So this is the presentation for 730 Yonge Street, and this is for the public hearing. So this proposal is currently at step 4, public hearing, which is where the finalized concept is presented to council, and members of the public have a final opportunity to comment on the proposal, and it's where council makes their final decision regarding the development. So this is the subject site. Of the 91,000 square meters of this property area, just over 60,000 square meters are proposed to be developed. So it's not this entire triangle here, it's more the northern side towards the top of the image, which is planning to be developed. This is an excerpt from the town's policy area map showing the proposal is within the future growth policy area. And this is an excerpt from the town's zoning map showing that the lands are zoned future growth, environmental reserve, and urban growth. Residential development with more than 18 units is to be considered by development agreement in the UG zone. So this is the subject property, which is currently undeveloped. This area along Yonge Street has seen significant change in the past 25 years, transitioning from a very low-density residential neighborhood to a medium to high-density residential area with nearby recreation and accommodation uses that relate to Victoria Park, which is very close by to this development. And this is another view of the subject property towards the north of the site. This is the site plan. You can note the north arrow, which points towards the downtown area, so this is not a true north map. There are 3 multi-units to the left here in blue, as well as a series of 9 stacked townhouses along the western side and 7 townhouses to the south. There's also an existing pond there, which would be preserved and would also feature surrounding green space as part of this proposal. Some details about the proposal. So the height varies between 2 and 5 stories. The 5 stories would be the blue multi-unit buildings. The stacked townhouses are 3 stories tall, and the standard townhouses are 2 stories tall. The total number of units comes out to 281. The lot coverage with the buildings as well as the paving comes out to 27%. And for parking, there are 362 parking spaces, and this is a mixture of the at-grade parking, which would be on the site itself, as well as below-grade parking. So with those blue multi-unit buildings, there's some sub-grade parking that's not fully underground, but it is partially underground. This is the breakdown of the unit types that would be featured in the proposal. So there are 10 bachelor units, 108 one-bedroom units, 86 two-bedroom units, and 77 three-bedroom units, and that comes out to 281 units. So between the previous Planning Advisory Committee meeting and this public hearing, the applicant has provided some new renderings, and so this is a view of that rendering looking above and north. So you can see the multi-unit buildings there, they sort of have that L shape, and then you have the stacked townhouses going back all the way to the standard townhouses. There we go. And this is the same rendering looking south. So they've also provided some additional renderings showing each housing type. So here we have the multi-unit building. These are the stacked townhouses. And the standard townhouses on the southern portion of the lot. Moving on to the policy review portion of this presentation, Policy UG 35 is the policy that enables council to consider this proposal by development agreement. One important policy that relates to this development is the South End Future Growth Area Conceptual Plan, which is created as part of the town's plan review process. And the purpose of this plan is to encourage planned growth through a mixture of residential densities in this part of town. And so this sort of area is designated for some growth. And here we can see the subject property. So it lies along one side of what would eventually become a road that would provide connectivity and future growth potential in this area. And those roads are included on the site plan. Planning staff have reviewed the proposal based on the applicable policies found in the town's planning documents. Overall, the proposal does a good job of providing a mixture of residential densities in the aforementioned growth area, while also providing lots of open space through that amenity around the pond. Some policies do conflict with this proposal, specifically one that promotes walkability and proximity to amenities. And this proposal also has less parking spaces than would normally be permitted as of right, and that's something that I'll get into on these upcoming slides. So previously, the last time that this came before the Planning Advisory Committee, this proposal was 81 parking stalls shy of the number of stalls that would normally be required as of right, so without any sort of development agreement. And since then, that gap has been closed in the finalized plan, so now the development would be 39 spaces shy. And this has to do with an increase in the number of parking spaces as well as a reduction in the number of units. That makes it much closer to meeting the as-of-right requirements of the town's land use bylaw. And the other consideration that I had brought up is amenities. So due to the lack of amenities that are within walking distance to the subject lands, most people would need to drive in order to access everyday goods and services. So as this part of town continues to develop, this could change as infrastructure could extend to meet the new growth in town, and services could potentially locate to capture business in that area. And so it comes down to a balance of considering the town's current built form versus what it's planning to become in the future. Where this property is designated for growth, a higher distance to amenities is something of a natural outcome. There we go. Oh, here we go. This application includes a servicing plan, and at the request of the town engineer's office must also submit a stormwater management plan for approval. Similarly, the applicant will need to provide a traffic study to consider new roads and the proposed connections onto Yonge Street. And I've covered off the heights before, so I'll keep moving. During the meetings of the Planning Advisory Committee, the impacts of lighting to adjacent properties were raised as a concern, and so as a part of this process, the development will be required to limit excess lighting and require cutoff fixtures. And I just wanted to include a map here. So this shows the distance of the proposed development to its nearest neighbors, so anywhere where people reside. So on the northern end are the tallest buildings, the 5 stories, which are about 140 meters away from the nearest resident. And on the south side, there are homes which are 2 stories tall. And those are about 384 meters from what you can see here at Seek Wilderness Accommodation. Now, this proposal also aligns with many of the town's planning policies, and these include providing a mixture of unit types in residential development, especially within the future growth area, the provision of outdoor amenity space, as well as the application of sustainable, energy-efficient design principles. As part of this process, other departments were contacted to review the proposal and provide any concerns or comments. Some of the feedback received from other departments includes the need to ensure that water pressure is available for firefighting, the separation distances between neighboring structures and lot lines, and this is in consideration with building code requirements. So if they don't meet those requirements, then they'll just have different building code requirements placed on them. And finally, recommendation from the town's urban forest supervisor, as well as some recommendations within his report for tree retention and species selection. This is the survey, so we only had one response from the survey results as of October 30th, and it was one opposed, and it generally spoke to the increasing density of development in town. In terms of public participation, a development application notice sign was posted on the subject lands on May 16th. Information was updated on the town's website under active development applications, and a mailet was sent out to property owners within 150 meters of the subject property on May 14th. In terms of next steps, if council approves this proposal, the applicant will proceed with the signing of the development agreement and with the issuing of development permits to build. And finally, this is staff's recommendation to approve the application, and this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions from council? Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. McPherson, for your presentation, and thank you to everybody for being here. Did we have any correspondence, Mr. Dolter, on this? Because I know I talked to some people who had concerns, and I suggested they contact the town directly so their correspondence could be read. Do we have any?
I didn't get anything directly. I don't know, Mr. McPherson, if you got anything?
Regarding 730 Yonge Street? No.
No.
Okay, bear with me for a moment then, because one of the things I do have up here from feedback that I received, asking for a minimum of a 20 to 30 foot natural tree buffer to be kept, because this is something that maybe we may have missed in the plan, is that we have some fairly dense plans there at the top of Yonge Street, right across from parks, wilderness, and open space. Now, Mr. Fox, I had sent you an email asking you about potential changes to the planning and the zoning around that. I mean, I don't think we can require a 20 to 30 foot tree buffer around every park and open space, because I think that would probably kill some of our parks, honestly. I don't know if you had a chance to look into that. Is there any way that we can sort of protect Victoria Park a little bit more with buffers, or have I misread the plan? Is that protection already present?
There's already protection in place for in terms of height restrictions around Victoria Park. This property doesn't actually abut the Victoria Park. Across the street's actually other lands that are in the, I believe it's urban growth or future. What's the zoning on the neighbor?
More future growth.
Yeah, it's more future growth across the street, so it doesn't actually abut the park.
Right, doesn't abut the park, but we do have that future growth across the street, and we do have concerns raised from the resident about the encroachment onto our wilderness areas and our park areas by all of this densification. And what I'm wondering is, do we have any mechanisms in place along Yonge Street to help put in that tree buffer, especially where some of that area hasn't yet been cleared?
So as I've indicated, we do have protections in place for Victoria Park currently regarding the height of buildings. There is no requirement, I don't believe there's any requirement for a vegetative buffer.
Okay. That might be something that we can address later. I don't know if we can address it today, but certainly if the applicant were here, I would love to be able to
So
suggest
just
that.
so you're aware, I believe the Municipal Government Act prohibits the town from regulating trees on private property unless it's in association with the development. So there's nothing stopping from any landowner from cutting trees on their property, even if it abuts the town's park. If the town wishes to protect its parks, the town needs to acquire the additional land to provide that buffer.
Fantastic. Noted. Give me one moment. Because again, I thought these folks would have emailed in. One of the concerns again was, pardon me, concerned about ongoing development, concerned about the infrastructure, unable to sustain the rapid development we've been seeing, terrifying to know the impact on the reservoir over the last 6 months. Should all of the current projects, Yonge Street, Esplanade, Lawrence Street, et cetera, have been online for water now? Mr. Browning, you might infer that this question might be coming to you then. I've asked you at previous council meetings about the impacts of the residential uses. We've talked about the apartment buildings. I know when I've lived in apartments, it has not been, my water bill's been significantly lower than in the house, even though my house is also fairly low, because I'm fairly water conscious. Can you speak briefly to that, or to Mr. Dolter? I know you had answered at one of the council meetings.
Certainly, Mr. Browning can speak directly to it, but the process that we go through for these developments, so the unit count and the typical water usage will be looked at for the number of units. So Public Works would be asked to comment on both the water usage, the sewer, water and sewer, and stormwater management, and the stormwater that will be coming down. So again, Mr. Brown may want to add some more to it, but all of that would have been looked at with the proposal in sitting down with planning staff and making comments on the development itself. So all those things have been taken into consideration. And again, remind everybody that this year is an exceptional year as far as water usage goes. And again, so, again, Ms. Browning, I don't know if you want to comment on that directly or not.
Well, I'll also add that a little over a year ago, we had a water capacity study completed for our entire water system that looked at future developments in comparison to what we have for capacity for water, capacity for treatment plants, so we could plan ahead, plan forward as to what future impacts it would have. They yielded that essentially our water system has the capacity to handle the future developments that were looked at, and this area in particular was one of them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Next question would probably be to Chief Curry and Chief McNeil. The comment was that fire and emergency services are taxed as it is. The scope of these projects is too great of a scope for what the town can provide for infrastructure and services. Can either of you speak to any concerns that your departments have regarding the addition of these? Because I know this goes out to your department, so I know you've looked at it.
Am I on?
You are.
It would add to the additional fire load for the town. But as far as the workload goes, not more of a workload unless everything was burning at once.
Which
So
we
it would
hope
kind of
is-
just, it would create more of a fire load for the town, which of course would be a little bit of a higher risk, but nothing that we would concern ourselves with.
And when you say fire load, you just mean like the coverage area?
Yeah, you're adding another building, you're adding another piece of property that could burn. We'd call that fire load.
It's just another, it's more potential for requiring.
Yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate that today, the way that buildings are being built, even though built out of lighter material, but they're safer material and safer houses and buildings and apartments, so.
Okay, and then Chief McNeil?
Yeah, no issues for us.
Perfect. And another question for planning staff. I hear a lot of concerns from people about the schools being overcrowded. Now, I know that we send this to, every development agreement goes to CCRCE, requesting their response. I never see that they have had any concerns, but I have to ask the question, are they responding?
So sometimes they do respond. In this case, they haven't responded.
Okay. So they do sometimes respond to some of these development agreements. They haven't responded on this one?
I believe for one of them, it might have been 201 callback. They responded and said that they didn't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, I'm going to leave the easy question for last. Stacked townhouses. We've heard this a bit recently with some other developments. I don't know that it's ever been properly defined, so given this public hearing, seems like the perfect place to do it. Do we have a definition of stacked townhouses or how that differs from a regular townhouse?
So we don't actually define stacked townhouses in our bylaws. It's not a term we use to regulate land use, but it is a form of multi-unit tenancy. So what it is just a townhouse. It's basically a townhouse unit on top of a townhouse unit. So what you're looking at may look like 4 townhouses, but it's in fact 8 units that each have their own entrance, typically. So if you look at that carefully, I believe you'll see that there's multiple entrances on the ground floor. There may be an entrance on the rear facade as well, providing access to a unit that's on the upper levels, if that makes sense. So basically, it's a town. There could be 4 floors, 2 per unit, and they're split up vertically into townhouse style units.
So looking at this helpful rendering in front of us, it looks like 3.5, maybe that loft space based on those windows, that loft space would also be accessible, so we would probably have a...
Yeah, and it may also be 3 stories, but the ground floor would be 1 unit where the 2 upper floors would be a separate unit. It really doesn't matter how it's configured internally. It's just a term meaning that you have a unit stacked on top of another unit and they all have their own entrance.
So almost like a split entry, I guess, yeah.
No.
No?
No.
Then maybe I don't understand. This, because I'm seeing two doors there, like we'll use this closest unit, I see the 2 doors. One would have access to, I assume, that ground floor unit, and then the other one, again, assuming based on all these doors, one of them's got to go up.
Yes, one of them would have a stairwell up to an upper floor.
Okay, so it would be a separate stairwell as opposed to a split entry where it's, okay, yeah, that's my mistake, thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Talbot.
Yes, first of all, I want to establish if is this the property that abuts on Mr. Parrish's property that we're discussing now?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, just a few questions, I'm afraid. First of all, the property size is 22.59 acres, and however, only 15.4 acres are being developed. So will the approximate 4 acres remaining be landscaped in some way? What's happening with that? It's a large piece of property.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that the rest of that property would just be left as is, and the development is purely focusing on the lands that are being developed within the site plan.
Okay, that's interesting. Second, there's 3 ponds on that property, and I walked that property, and it's up and down, and it's quite wet, and the water's kind of trapped on the property because there's been a lot of disturbed land around there, so all the water's kind of trapped in 3 ponds on the property that I could tell. And I'm just wondering, when we look at the pond that's going to be made, is that a brand new pond, or is that number 2 pond, like coming from the north? going south, like there's 3 ponds on the property. And I believe there's, could you turn to the zoning map, or? Yeah, see, there's 3 ponds. See the 3 ponds on the property? So can you tell me which pond is the one that's going to be developed, and the other 2 are going to be filled in, I suppose?
So that would be the middle pond, so
The
pond
middle
number
pond there,
2.
okay. Because there's movement from that pond at the top, there's a ditch between that pond and the second pond. Anyways, I'll just leave that, but there needs to be a proper stormwater management plan done, and this is not an easy property to drain, et cetera. So, because you have that environmental zone there as well, and I don't want to see any more water leaving that property than there's on there now. Because right now, it appears to me that those ponds, and there's 3 of them, are sort of keeping that water on that property. And when you fill 2 of those ponds in, essentially, you know, that water's got to go someplace. So it's going to be interesting how that all fares out. But that concerns me, so I want to bring that up as a concern. The lighting, we talked about a lot about lighting on this project, and I think it's important because of the fact that it's near Seek Wilderness, Adventure Wilderness, and that is, so I don't want to see this, lighting's very important, and I'm not even quite sure what cutoff lighting means. So could you explain to me what cutoff lighting means? I understand that it won't go above the horizontal, but if you put a pole up with a light 40 feet in the air, or sorry, you know, let's be reasonable, 25 feet in the air or 20 feet in the air, you're going to be able to see it a long distance. So can you tell me what that means, cutoff lighting? And will lighting be sort of kept somehow subtle on the property?
So you just explain what its full cutoff fixture is: a light that doesn't shine beyond the horizontal. That doesn't mean that if you put it up on a high pole that there wouldn't be some light pollution or light trespass as a result of that.
Right.
The idea is that it's to be kept to minimum and not excessive, and it's currently in our land use bylaw in that form. The regulations are already there, so we do have tools to enforce excessive lighting or light trespass.
Yeah.
The reality is if there's deemed to be a need for traffic or like street lights on Yonge Street, then street lights on Yonge Street may happen, and those are not necessarily going to be full cutoff fixtures. So that's probably going to be the largest issue for Seek, I would suggest, as opposed to internal lighting on this site, because we can control that through the land use bylaw.
Right, right. And so I think we just need to pay close attention to the development as it's developed, or what the architect says for lighting, because I think lighting's important in that area. I want to be it as to protect the business and the park, et cetera, to have at least light pollution as possible. I was just wondering about the policy we have about affordable units. I was wondering if there's been any discussion about that with the developer about affordable units. There's a lot of units here. Is there any, has he made any, or she made any indication that they're going to go to and seek federal funding to help reduce interest rates and therefore provide affordable housing?
So I believe when this was in front of the Planning Advisory Committee, the applicant mentioned that they were going to be working with CMHC to provide affordable units.
Okay, it would be very interesting. I feel in some ways I have questions that can't be answered, and because I like to know how many units, you know, are going to be affordable, because that would be very interesting. In you know, talking about whether we approve this project. If there's no affordable units, you know, I like to have some sort of commitment from concerning affordable units. It's an important aspect of these developments. It's such a large development. Water pressure. I'm concerned about firefighting and water pressure. Can you just talk to us about that, Chief? Just about the water pressure. I know there's 3 hydrants that run along the street there, and I was just wondering, you know, it's next to the woods. If the woods catch on fire and the fire moves towards that development, you know, fighting that fire is going to take quite a bit of water. So can you talk to us about that?
Well, I guess.
And pressure.
When it comes to wildfire, that's a little different, because you would need loads of water in order to address that issue. But as far as fighting a structure fire in that area, most of our pressure, so your hydrant system comes in volume. So the volume of water that we're going to get, and then our pressure comes from our trucks as we create our pressure. So Currently is a low-volume area, but the pressures that we'd be able to put out are still going to be the same.
And that volume, does that volume concern you?
No, it doesn't concern me because we have many different options, even if we did not have a hydrant system up there.
Right.
Through shuttle services, through tankers coming in from other departments, through water supply, which is close up in that area also. But currently, no, I'm not concerned about the amount of volume of water we have.
Okay. Thank you for that. The last question I have has to do with the road that's going into the development. It's going to be shared by a development that's before the council, before PAC right now, and that main road that's leading into the development. Who's paying for the infrastructure to go into that road? I mean, there's this Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund that's available. What's happening with that? Is the town going to be paying for that, or is the developer paying for that? What's happening there?
So we're actually looking at that funding right now and trying to come up with a way to partially fund the construction of that road.
Right. Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy, and I appreciate you bringing up, that was my concern as well, to hope with the number of units that are going in there that something is going to be affordable, and also that I know there's been some concerns from Sikhs, so hopefully they'll be good neighbors and everyone can work cohesively together if this development is approved. Look, next I have Councillor Graham.
I was wondering if we could look at slide 11. Is this an accurate depiction of how it exists now, or what we anticipate it's going to look like with all that lush foliage and trees? And it seems really, really nice, but I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah, so I would say that the foliage is not an accurate representation of how the site will look. I mean, as you can see, the trees span well beyond the property, and that's not really how the property looks. However, I would say that the site plan and its and as well as their landscaping plan is probably the best, most accurate representation of what it would look like. And that's combined with the recommendation from the town's urban forestry supervisor on how to retain trees and the species that he's recommended, which were, that recommendation was created after the renderings, so that's also something to bear in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pryor.
I'm not sure who this is for, but I was wondering about curbs and sidewalks, as there are none at this time up there.
Yeah, so with this development, there has been some discussion about how the roads would be constructed. So we have the portion here on the left side of the image, which would be shared by multiple developments, and then there's the internal road that goes through the development. So for the internal road, the idea is that they would be using a path as well as sort of naturalized swales instead of a traditional curb, sidewalk, gutter approach. And then the idea with this connector is that it would be built to something of a hybrid standard between the two. So the side that faces the development would also use swales, which are sort of like a naturalized landscaped ditch. And then on the other side, it would be curb, gutter, sidewalk, traditional of a municipal street.
What about on Yonge Street?
Yonge Street, there aren't any plans to add sidewalks there as a part of this development, since that's
What's our street?
yeah, it's belonging to the town.
Yeah, the good bad may, yeah. So Yonge Street will be, turn it off instead of on. Yonge Street would be subject to future development plans. Again, that would be, and I would say not immediate, because again, we currently don't have any planning for sidewalk on that area as we're working on some of the other areas of town. But again, as this development is completed, then we can start looking at that. One of the things that we don't want to do is start putting sidewalk in an area that's under construction, because they'll all be broken up during the construction phase. So again, once this is completed, so we'll have to look at that as part of our capital budget on whether or not how we're going to treat it. But again, that'll be subject to future planning.
So we're looking years down the road anyway, right?
Several years until we have the full build out again, because you've got construction underway and you've got heavy vehicles, cement mixers, all those types of things going in. Last thing you want is sidewalk to be driven over and broken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Talbot.
Yes, I'd just like to revisit the whole affordable housing issue for a moment. Now, Halifax, through a special charter, has the ability to require affordable units when they have these mass developments. And there was some talk about that particular process being spread province-wide. So I guess my first question would be, has that happened? And my other comment would be simply for the developer to say that they're looking at those options doesn't give me much assurance. And that's not meant as a criticism to anybody, it's just a fact. But has the province approved the ability for all municipal units to insist that these mass developments have a percentage of affordable housing?
The province has passed that legislation that does allow us to, they amended the Municipal Government Act to give us the ability to do that. So the town of Truro can today require a percentage of units in a development be affordable. I believe when we last looked at this, I prepared a report for council, I believe, and we discussed this, and the idea was that we would approach the county with a regional sort of approach to the idea of setting up an affordable housing requirement, because if we do it alone, we would be driving the development to the county, because developers are going to look and say, well, if we don't have to build 30% affordable units in the town of Truro, we're going to go to Bible Hill and build our apartment building or build our housing development. So we wanted to do something together with the County of Colchester, and they've been, I believe, a little bit slow on their end to respond.
Yeah, we're still trying to set up a meeting.
Yeah.
There is some level of reluctances. They're coming into that major development in Bible Hill. The timing is probably right to have that discussion, but there's nothing currently in place. And as Mr. Fox indicated, one of the challenges is that by imposing that, you're affecting the whole business plan for the developer, and therefore they're going to go wherever they can get the better arrangements. So again, that's the challenge. Unless we're doing it regionally, it wouldn't work well for us.
Do you think it's possible to get in touch with the county so we can have something brought forward with them and bring it back to council in January or February?
I think we can get together. I doubt it would be that quick because again, it's going to take a number of meetings. And again, I have been speaking to the CAO for the county, and we just need to set up a meeting and have the preliminary discussion. From the preliminary meeting, we'll report back to council on where things stand. This is something that obviously has to be well developed, and we have to look at all the ramifications of it as well to make sure that it makes sense for both municipalities.
We're going to start.
Yeah, I'll
set up.
Yeah,
right?
I'll set up. I'll have a meeting with them on that.
Good. Okay, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. I just want to say I agree with this development. I do like the solar panels on the buildings and stuff, but I will express my disagreement with Mr. Fox and Mr. Dolter in regards to the business going out to the county. They don't have any water. Everybody in these buildings, they need the water. So I don't buy that for 1 second. That's my personal opinion. I don't buy that for a second. We can ask them to make 20% or 10% or 50% whenever we want. And if they don't want to do it, we have all kinds of them on the books now that aren't even being built. So if they want to build them, we can put what we want for affordable housing, or below market rate, probably more accurate, because anyone can afford. Some people can afford $2,000. Some people can't afford $600. But below market rate, I think we can request that now without the county agreement to it. And if we want to do it, I say we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As I always say, what's affordable to one person is not affordable to someone else. Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, my last point on this, if the intent of municipal units is to build a just society where fairness is built in for everybody, then you would think all municipal units would have a very tough time turning this down. So I think this discussion that we have to expedite.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree. Is there any further questions from council before I open it up to the gallery? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, my question has to do with the development agreement itself. Part 5 is titled subdivision. Could someone just please just expand on that? What's in that? Talks about the property may be further subdivided or consolidated, provided, Could you just go through that with us, please? Just what that's about? Part 5.1 and Part 5.2.
Sorry, I don't have a copy of that in front of me. Can you please read the section you're referring to?
So it says the property may be further subdivided or consolidated, provided A, the proposed subdivision conforms to the lots outlined in the site plan attached as Schedule B. B, except where otherwise permitted by this part, the proposed subdivision complies with the requirement of the town of Truro subdivision bylaw as amended. C, any lot created for a townhouse unit must have a minimum frontage of 6.5 meters on a municipal-owned street or a common shared driveway, and will also be subject to enter into a limited service agreement with the town as per section 5.2 of this agreement if the lot does not have frontage on the municipally owned street, and D, the proposed subdivision complies with the requirement of the National Building Code as amended. My question, and that's just the part, that's 5.1, so I think people are tired of me reading already, so what I am going to say is...
If you don't mind, I just want a point of clarification. 5.2 should not be there. That's been removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
limited
helpful.
services had to do with the type of tenancy. They're not proposing to have any freehold townhouses like individually owned townhouses as part of this development, so it's not required. So that is to be removed.
Okay, that was my question,
yeah.
one of my questions.
And then
Okay.
5.1 is simply a requirement that they conform with the town subdivision bylaw, or if there's any exemptions from the town subdivision bylaw, that it has to be in accordance with the site plan that's been approved as part of the development agreement. Because there is a lotting arrangement proposed as part of that. You can see some tentative lot lines shown on the site plan, which is on the
Right.
screen. So that's all it's saying.
Okay, but if they're not going to have limited services, in other words, if they're not going to sell off some of these townhouses, then, yeah, I don't...
The proposal is either to do condos, or condominium setup, or rentals. So
Okay.
there's no freehold, like individually owned properties
Okay.
being proposed as
Well,
part.
condominiums would be interesting rather than rental. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your questions. Thank you, Council. I'm now going to open up for any people in the gallery that may want to ask a question. Is there any questions in the gallery? Please come down. Yeah. No. Yeah. Do we have the mic? Second. No. The reason we have to get it because we can't hear the question and people that are watching couldn't hear you. So just push the button. Don't be shy. Yeah, we're all friends here. Push the button and the light will come on. There we go. There we go. Push the button. Yep. There we go. And
Okay.
can you just identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Joanne McNutt, and I'm a resident of South Yonge Street, and we have property on both sides of the street. We're at the very end, we butt with the county, right at the Hilden line. My concern, we talked a bit about water, my concern is the water, and this isn't the only development. We're talking about the town water supply, and given the conditions this year, this is the first year our pond and our yard went dry. The reservoir went down. So we're talking about the water level, and anybody above the water level, we require a pump for pressure. So I do have concerns when they make comments about there's lots of water, not concerned about the pressure. Well, we need a pump to get our water pressure. And when there's a fire in Hilden, the trucks come in front of our house and pump the water from there and go fight a fire in Hilden. So there is a concern for that, the water. And again, this is not the only project on Yonge Street. Sorry, I'm getting a little nervous. There's other projects, and there's already projects that have impacted Yonge Street. I'm supportive of development. Don't get me wrong, I love development. But what kind of development? That is the question. If you had individual homes, that's a completely different volume of people than all these buildings being built. I feel like I'm a little Halifax now. There's that concern, there's the water. The other one is the safety issue. You talked about sidewalks. We asked for sidewalks many years ago. Well, we were told we had to pay $25 per foot per road frontage. You wouldn't have sewer and water out there if it wasn't for us building our property 20 years ago. We had to pay $18,000 to get that out there. We don't have the sidewalks. The road is not maintained. The shoulders are not maintained unless we call to have them maintained. We have a beautiful seek up there that ever since that's been there, You can't walk there, so there's a safety issue with all this development going up there. And you're just going to be walking on shoulders? The shoulders aren't that wide. The other concern is when construction happens, the impact on that old dump corner. We don't have that's one way in and one way out. We have to go through Hilden, or we have to go through town. What impact is the construction, all these construction going to have? We have no way out if there's any concern. Whether there's fire, there's flood, we have to always go around the Hilden area. And if that's flooded or something, we're stuck. So there's a safety concern that I have. And again, fire is one of my biggest fears. And we are all around woods. And again, with the environment, I don't feel that the study is, just for a study to say we have a lot of water, I think when was that study done? We just have so much building going on in the town of Truro. What's the impact? And how are all these going to affect the long-time residents on South Yonge Street? Because you have Millbrook that bought all kinds of property. They're going to develop and be coming around. And then you have another county build development behind us. So I'm just concerned of water, safety, the fire, and the impact it's going to have on the residents, and the impact it's going to have on the town of Truro's income. You're not going to have any speeding tickets for sure. You're going to be blocking that off. You know, that's one of the main arteries that you get. Your biggest income is the speeding tickets. So just as a laugh, you know. Again, I didn't prepare for this because we just decided to come. And, but again, my concern is the impact. And my counselors, the 4 of them, I call them all the time, or I email them. Not all the time, I shouldn't say that. I only want to have a concern. And many people, I think there was a topic that we talked about this before, all the development that was going up there. And there was concerns back then. Some people didn't even know where the town line was. So how many people know where the town line is now? So we're residents of South Yonge Street, above Seek, and our properties want to be respected too, and we pay for the service and we're entitled to that service, not just these new developers coming in.
Thank you. I can, and I appreciate you bringing your concerns up here today. It's never easy to speak in public, and thank you for that. Does anyone want to address Mrs. McNutt's comments today?
Again, I'll do in just two. We don't get the money for the speeding tickets, so most of it goes to the province. As far as the water issue goes, I mean, we do understand your concern, and obviously, after going through this summer and the drop of the reservoir, it is a concern. In fact, there's an item on the agenda, somewhat to address that. The town was proactive though, so our water levels are still fairly robust as far as, because we've got more water. We're above the water line of the old reservoir when it was at its maximum level. So we are in a good position, but when we do look at these developments and even future developments, we do look at the amount of water available. Certainly we don't want to put residents in a position that there would be any risk of not having water available. So again, we do look at these carefully. So that will be ongoing. As far as your pressure issue goes, again, the issue with where the reservoir is compared to elevation of your property obviously creates part of that concern. We do have and as far as fire goes, we do have a fairly comprehensive strategy for fire protection and wildfire protection as well too. We're working closely with the province on that. In fact, the chief over the last year has brought in a number of things for town safety and working with Department of Natural Resources on being able to respond quickly to fire. So we're looking at that. And I do agree with your statement about Yonge Street. Yonge Street will except in very infrequent occasions where there might be a construction issue underway, Yonge Street has to remain open. It's a major artery, and it's both for residents on Yonge Street if they had to move, or again residents of Hilton if they had had to come down into town. So we have had occasions where, because of stormwater, has undermined the road, and we've in fact taken steps to correct that, because again, it was an issue with water flowing through and taking the road out. So we have taken steps to protect that over the last, I guess that was last summer we did that work and got that done. So, you know, and as far as safety and walkability, we recognize that as well too. My statements earlier about a sidewalk going in, obviously, as development increases in that area, we're continuing to try to put as sidewalk and increase the walkability of in town. As this area becomes more of a residential area, not what it was originally meant for was industrial development. Sidewalks will be eventually part of that plan. And again, you know, once these are built out, you know, that we'll have to look at having that plan in place fairly shortly after that's done. But you know, I do agree. You know, I do understand the concerns as far as the water supply goes, and we'll be putting steps in place to make sure our water supply is secure. And you know, our focus right now, in fact, is making sure that this spring our water is replenished. So we do want people to use less water over the winter. And I think even though it's intensive with the residential development that, you know, would go if council were to approve this development, those individual units use far less than if they were single-family homes, because there are no yards and there's less watering and other things that, you know, ownership of single-family homes actually entail. But, you know, Public Works, our staff will continue to monitor that, you know, and we will look at addressing immediate safety issues in that area as this moves forward, right? And, you know, again, if any residents have any concern, if you have a concern, just certainly call us about it, and we'll see what we can do to address it as we move forward. Yeah.
I've heard, you know, comments before about, you know, some people don't recognize our town anymore. It's looking like a little city. You know, we have to grow to survive, but I think as mayor, for me, it's important that we always try to keep that feeling of our town, so that because we all chose to live here for a reason, because we love the town. So to keep that small town feel, even though we are growing, it's a delicate balance of the both. And I appreciate your comments today, Ms. McNutt, and thank you for coming. Thank you. Councillor Graham?
Quick question for our CAO. Is it common practice for us to supply, or maybe it's for our chief fireman here, to supply water for other communities? And do we charge other communities when we supply water for firefighting?
Yeah, the provision of water is actually governed by the formerly URB, now the RAD. So the UARB we're a regulated utility. So for example, we sell water to Bible Hill, and there are other adjacent communities that we.
Sorry, I meant specifically for firefighting.
For firefighting, yeah, and a good example of that is even Millbrook as well. And we do charge for the provision of those services. So yeah, we would, anyone that would, so if we have hydrants in the area, there would be a charge to those areas for the provision of water services and firefighting services, right? If we're the major department that's assigned, we do have mutual aid agreements, so we will fight fires within the region in conjunction with other fire departments as well, which doesn't always involve having a hydrant available, because again, some of the county areas don't have hydrants because they're on a well system, and the chief doesn't need to get into the whole theory of ferrying water. I mean, but that's what the rural areas do. Okay. But yes, we anywhere that we're committed to or that have hydrants, we fight fires there, and we charge them for that service.
So Ms. McNutt mentioned that when a fire happens in Hilden, trucks from Hilden come and fill up at her fire hydrant.
In that particular case, the Hilden, we again, and I must admit, to be honest, I didn't realize we actually provided water to Hilden, so they're part of our utility. But yeah, so the Hilden Fire Department would fight on those hydrants. It's not, So and similarly, I'll take a step back because I understand your question more. In Bible Hill, we have fire hydrants. Bible Hill Fire hooks onto those fire hydrants. We don't automatically go to Bible Hill, right? So we provide water to those areas with hydrants. We have agreements with specifically Millbrook for the hydrants we provide them. We fight those fires.
Yes.
In that area. We're contracted to do that. In other areas where we provide water through the utility, Bible Hill and Hilden, those fire departments would use those hydrants to provide fire services.
Okay,
Unless we came in under mutual aid.
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone in the gallery today? Okay. Michelle, microphone? Yes. Stephanie? There we go. So,
Is
so I
that
know
okay?
you just
Can you hear me?
identify yourself. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
just, no,
Michelle?
yeah, speak right close.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's Michelle Wood. I'm with a resident, but I'm also with Lemonade Dance Society. And I think my biggest concern as we talk about the homes and assisted housing, financial assistance, we're not talking about accessibility. And Nova Scotia is the highest province in growth and disabilities. So I'm just wondering if that's part of the plan, how many units will be accessible. I'm seeing the beautiful townhouses, that type of thing. But again, we're looking at the accessibility part of it, which also then lines with the transportation part of it. If we have people living with accessibilities in these beautiful new developments, how will they be able to get to work and to their, shopping, that type of thing? I'm all for growth.
So take that.
Mr. Fox, as far as, Jacob.
I mean, ultimately, it does fall to the National Building Code, so that sets out the requirements for making units accessible, and it sets out a requirement of required accessible units as well as accessible parking spaces. I can say with this development, one of its goals is to provide a variety of housing types. So, we've seen a lot of developments in Truro that are just a single large apartment building. This does have some singles or two-story buildings, that could be designed to be, accessible, as opposed to having multiple floors that go up, none of which would be accessible. So there are requirements that kick in for elevators as well. So I think it does ultimately come down to the National Building Code.
We're looking right now at the whole public transportation issue as well too. One of the things that we did when we looked at the plan that the consultant had given us the preliminary routes on, we looked at this Yonge Street area as being one of the key areas for public transportation as well too. And obviously part of that would be transportation that is accessible as well to ensure that it's serviced properly. And again, go back to the sidewalk issue we did talk about earlier. We do realize that, once the build out has occurred, sidewalks in this area in order for people with mobility issues to get in and out would also be critical, because we do know, and we recognize this, Yonge Street itself right now is it is a rural road with dirt shoulders and, so that obviously has to be addressed for the residential side of the street for sure, to make sure that, we'll need to look at that and have a plan in place in order to address that.
Anything further? Councillor Fleming?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment to expand on what Mr. Dolter said. We do currently have a sidewalk all the way up to the the rail yard. So it's not going to be that far from there, another half a kilometer probably. It's not going to be too much further for us to build a sidewalk up to that area.
Yeah, I guess the difference right now is that we really need sidewalk on the other side.
Right.
More so than where it is now. So again, it's just, things have changed. Now, there are currently, I think, on the other side of the entrance to the rail yard now, there are townhouses that have gone in there now. So, we'll have to look at how we extend sidewalk and the type of road that Yonge Street is. We know that it's it's a major artery coming in. So again, we'll adjust the plan accordingly.
Okay. Francis Collins wants to speak from his seat, so we could take the microphone up. That would be great. Right there.
Good afternoon. I'm Francis Collins. I live down on the lowland. Anything's going to happen with the sewage lines coming down from the hill?
Okay.
I come down Screen Street here the other day, that little storm we had, part of Queen Street. The sewage lines wasn't handling the water.
So Francis, just to ensure, you're talking about stormwater lines, not sewage lines?
Stormwater lines?
Yeah,
and
stormwater
sewage
lines. Stormwater.
Well,
Well, if it's coming out of the grate, it's not sewage. They're separated. Yeah, so, as we all know, there are capacity issues with that. I'm not gonna say there's a plan tomorrow, but we do understand there needs to be, with climate change management, stormwater management, we do have to look at the sizing of some of those pipes. The challenge that we still have is that the water can come down off Yonge Street, it's still gotta have a place to go.
That's right.
So when it hits the flat area of town,
That's
if
right.
you put that much more water down, it's not going to be coming out on Yonge Street, it's gonna be coming out down below because it can't get into the river where the stormwater goes. So again, that's one of the things that, we're looking at now from an engineering perspective on what the best solution is in order to deal with it. We are aware that those stormwater grates overtop when we get a huge amount of rain. So we are looking at the issue. But I can't give you I'm not gonna lie to you and say, oh yeah, we have a plan in place. We're looking at what needs to be done.
What about the sewage lines?
The sewage lines have been assessed. The sewage lines are working, and there hasn't been an issue that I'm aware of with the sewage lines themselves.
Well, I've been hearing, Googling, bubbles coming out my sewage lines.
Again, I'd have to talk to Mr. Browning on that. I'm not aware of any issue with the sewage lines themselves. So,
As far as I know, the sewage lines are the same thing down on Ford Street, all through town. Now, if all this sewage is coming down off the hill, it's going to turn around, got to go somewhere, and we're getting the same developments down off of Ford Street, where all this sewage is going.
yeah, I can't say whether or not the sewage coming off Yonge actually goes down to Ford. It probably goes somewhere else. The network of sewage pipes is fairly complicated on where sewage actually goes, and Mr. Browning stepped out. But if you would like to come talk about that, we can talk about that at a later date. Because again, I don't have the mapping, and I can't give you an accurate answer on that right now. Right?
Because to me, all the development up on Yonge Street now, where's all that going?
Well, it's going into the current infrastructure that's there, and we've assessed it, and it can take the loads that are forecast to come out of the system.
Well, only thing I can say, I'll hold you to it.
Yeah.
We'll get Mr. Browning to reach out to you and any questions. He stepped out of the box. Okay, Mr. Collins? Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, like Paris there. I was just trying to figure out all the kids are gonna live out there. How are they getting back and forth to school if they can't walk through the woods? I mean, you build all these big apartments and you get a school up in Yonge Street. How's the kids getting to school? There's no sidewalk for that. I went down to the mailbox this morning there, and on that turn there, car pretty near struck me because their car was gone one way, and the other car was going. They had nowhere to go. So where's the kids going? How are they getting to school? Flying them in? I can't figure out how they're going to get to school. You're building all these big apartments. There's no sidewalks or nothing, and the roads are too narrow. They can't walk. So how are they going to fly? You're going to fly them in.
Yeah.
And the explanation I get, you got one for me?
Yeah. I mean, once the buildings become occupied, again, we're going to have to look at the sidewalk issue, right?
Well, you got no room for sidewalks because the street is too narrow. Right there on Yonge Street, there on the turn there, there's no sidewalks there. A car hit me this morning because the car right on the doorsteps. The new apartments they're building right across from my place.
No, that's something, that area, no, and I can certainly appreciate the immediate area that you're referring to.
What's that?
I can certainly appreciate the immediate area that you're referring to, just at that bend there.
Yeah.
Because also,
How, and they put 2 telephone poles there, somebody's gonna get killed this winter. They got 2 telephone poles 2 feet from the pavement, and they got nowhere to go. So somebody's gonna be dead there before winter's over.
well, I certainly hope not.
Well, I hope not either, but I
right.
mean, it's a possibility.
Mhm.
So who arranged that? Whose idea was that to put them telephone poles so close to the pavement?
Well, they're not our telephone poles, but
What's that?
it's not. They're not our telephone poles. No, I will say it's just as Mr. Dolter's been speaking
I mean,
to.
these streets are not built for all these apartments.
Not at the moment.
Well, you can't
For pedestrian, to expand for pedestrian. I mean, this is something, as Mr. Dolter has indicated earlier, once these developments start building out and we start getting them occupied, then the demand for the actual, like, sidewalk infrastructure will then be there. And as this starts to present itself, then we start looking at the street geometry itself, the right-of-way widths. If we need to go and acquire or realign things in order to make things work as far as an active transportation network, sidewalks specifically, then we will certainly look at that at this
Well, you
time.
have this stuff done before you start putting the big buildings in, shouldn't you? Fix the sidewalks and fix the streets.
As Mr. Dolter pointed out earlier, that's the situation there that we're in right here, looking at sidewalk. If we put infrastructure in before the construction has started, the infrastructure will get damaged during construction, and we just be back replacing it.
You can put gravel down, it ain't gonna hurt the gravel.
Well, that's gravel.
Yeah, it ain't gonna hurt it.
Well, it kicks it up.
Someplace
This
to
is-
walk anyway, you
Yep.
have someplace to walk.
Just to put in perspective, when we speak to not putting in permanent infrastructure in prior to construction, it's very similar to, you look in areas where new subdivision development occurs. The street itself, when built, does not get paved initially. It gets built, it gets paved or whatever once there's enough houses within it so that the construction is done. Otherwise, if it's paved right off the bat, the pavement goes and gets destroyed.
Past my place.
Well, I was just giving you an example or whatever as far as streetway.
How do I walk out the road from my place? I have to go into the brook.
Okay,
No sidewalks there, and turned right there. How do I get out the road? Go through the brook? That's the only way I can get out there.
okay, do you?
Pardon?
How do you get out to the road? Or do you?
I don't go.
Okay, okay.
But if I wanted to go, how would I get there? If I went to go see Gregory
Mhm.
Road, how would I get there?
Mhm.
Car or taxi?
Mhm.
You can't walk. There's no place to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, what was your name again?
Alec Pears.
Okay, thank
So,
you. very much.
Mr. Paris, if the concern right now on Young Street, if you're concerned about the shoulder of the road, we can take a look to see what the condition of the gravel is there right now.
No,
And-
I'm just talking, just talking.
Yeah.
My biggest concern was 660-something
Yeah,
when it hooked on my property.
yeah. No, I agree. That's the next development. I
Yeah.
understand that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your comments today, sir. Thank you very much. You get the microphone. Thank you. Is there any further comments today on 730 Young Street? None? Okay. The last 3 times. Are there any further comments today for 730 Young Street? Third and final ask. Any further comments today? Seeing none, the public hearing for 730 Young Street is closed. Thank you. We'll now proceed to the public agenda today. This is a public council meeting for the town of Truro for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Mr. Dolter, are there any changes, omissions, deletions to the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no changes to the agenda for November 3rd is approved. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from October 6, 2025. The minutes were circulated. Are there any changes identified? Councillor Fleming? No, I'm just going to... Oh, okay, all right, okay. If there's no changes identified on the minutes for October 6, 2025 are approved. Petitions, delegations, and correspondence. Mr. McDolter, are there any items?
Nothing today, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Item number 4 under old business. Item 4A, request for decision 730 Young Street. Mr. Dolter, if you please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So an application by Quaba Developments Incorporated to permit a multi-unit residential development consisting of 281 dwelling units split between 19 buildings, including 2-story townhouses, 5-story multi-unit buildings on lands at 730 Yonge Street, and those are PID numbers 204-83244, 204-83251, and 204-82998. The application was reviewed by the town's Planning Advisory Committee at their January and May meetings. After the final Planning Advisory Committee meeting, the applicant has adjusted two design elements to differ from what was considered by PAC. First, the 4-story multi-unit buildings were increased to the height of 5 stories to accommodate a subgrade parking as opposed to fully underground parking. Secondly, the number of units was adjusted from 287 to 281. The Planning Advisory Committee concurred with the recommendation listed in the staff's report dated May 22nd, 2025, and recommended council approve the development agreement subject to the submission of a lighting plan and a landscaping plan reviewed by the town's urban forester and accepted by the town's development officer. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is, be it resolved that council approve the application of Aquaba Development Incorporated to develop a multi-unit residential development consisting of 281 dwelling units at 730 Yonge Street.
Thank you. I'd call for a mover. Councillor McGrath, seconder. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pryor? Councillor Graham?
I was wondering if we could consider delaying a decision on this one, specifically because it is such a mass development and there seems to be an appetite by council to have the opportunity to enforce some affordable housing in these mass developments until we until we're a little further down the road with how that might unfold. Do we have a mechanism to delay this decision?
If you're doing it for that reason, I would say that, again, we currently don't have any development, any developed plans or regulations or bylaws that would actually permit council to do that. The process to do that would be lengthy. Again, so, I mean, although the MGA does allow it, as indicated earlier in the discussion, council would have to vote to table this development agreement approval, which they could do, but we have to understand that the process to put something in place that at the end of the day we may not get agreement on from the County of Colchester, it could, like I said, it could be a lengthy delay. And I guess the question is what about the other developments we have on the table? Because other developments are coming up, and are those also being considered for the same?
Maybe.
Okay, well, then that's a major leap in policy by council, so I'll need council to make a determination whether or not they're prepared to do that. I don't know, Mr. Thompson, Madam Mayor, if the solicitor wants to weigh in.
I think a potential problem with that would be that this application is proceeded based on the rules as they exist right now. That's what the developer has put forward. That's what's been assessed. I think that there could be problems if the rules are changed at this stage with respect to this development.
Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor. My concern is the same as Councillor Graham's. Also, the developer's not here, so I don't have the opportunity to ask him him or her what the commitment is on how many or below market rent apartments they were willing or are going to have, or if they have a mortgage through CMHC or whatever. So I'm not prepared to go ahead with this today for that very reason, unless there's a very good reason someone can give me why they're not here today.
Deputy Mayor?
I can explain the absence.
Okay.
They were under the impression that, like Planning Advisory Committee, the meeting is at 6. So there's confusion on their end as to what time the meeting was.
So
that's why they're not here.
Okay, well, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, there's emails back and forth, I'm guessing, and then they... All right, anyway, I'm still not prepared to go ahead with that. It's not much of a reason for them not appearing.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm going to let others speak first. I have another question not attached to the discussion right now, and I think it's important to finish this discussion before I ask my question. Okay. So I'll back off for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Talbot.
I agree with our solicitor. I do not think you can change the rules in the middle of the game. You have to be fair to the public, but you also have to be fair to the developers. They applied under a certain set of rules, they ticked off the boxes, and though I am very concerned with affordability, I'm not prepared to hold this proposal up simply based on that and changing rules in the middle of the game. I can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pryor.
When we had our NSFM last spring, I attended one of the sessions that with the developers, and one of the things that they said they wanted all municipalities to do was to have clear and concise rules, and they're willing to follow them. So I guess I'm going to agree with Wayne on that one. Thank you.
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am also in agreement that we can't change the rules midway through, but I will like to stress that we have been pushing for this affordability framework for 2 years to the month. 2 years since I was sworn in, and we brought up the affordable housing framework, and we were told we should have something within 6 months. It is now 2 years to the month. This was something I was going to bring up later, but since we're having the affordable housing framework discussion now, it is imperative that we move forward with the county on these meetings. I've brought up several times about these delays, asking if council can somehow get involved, if we can send a letter to their council to talk to their staff to expedite things, but we have got to move on the affordable housing framework. To the point about possibly delaying to talk to the developer, there's nothing that they'll be held to if they say, oh, we're working with CMHC and we're planning on this. I don't think, and Mr. Fox, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think that we can hold them to any affordable housing unit, percentages or numbers until we have that framework in place. Is that correct?
That is correct, but also we do have a framework that was developed. I did develop the framework. I did present it to council, so that's
Fair.
been done. It's been a long time, and I do agree. I can see why you might have forgotten about it, but it was presented to the county. We just haven't had a response back from the county as to their agreement to proceed with it. So that's where that stands.
And that's trying. And Mr. Fox did leave it with me, and I've been talking to the CAO for the county to set up a meeting and moving that forward. The other thing that I think council has to recognize too, and recognizing that, and we've talked to developers about this in the past, without some level of subsidy either through CMHC or other sources, the design that you see today, if affordable units is what they're required to produce, is not what they're going to build if there is no subsidy in place. They can't afford to do it. So the materials being used, the type of buildings, the sizes, are going to change with that if in fact there isn't other sources of funding, because again, where private development is what it is, and there is a profit motivation in order to do this to make it worthwhile. So as we move forward, and again, we'll have to learn as that goes forward, depending on how council wants to move it forward. We have to recognize that a lot of the high quality builds that we have had in town that have not involved federal funding to subsidize is not what you would get if there is no additional funding and the developer is simply told 30% of units are to be affordable. Because again, they can't afford to do that. Again, the cost of development is again, one of the buildings that's going up today, we're told is $300,000 a door, basically a unit, to build those. So you can't rent a $300,000 build for $600 a month unless another level of government is involved. And that's the critical piece here, that again, it's critical to have this conversation with the county, but again, making this work for us and the developers is a critical issue that we've got to overcome. I just feel we need to say that, because again, it's one thing to say we're going to rent places for $600 a month, but the developers have to be able to build them to make it work for them, and at the end of the day, they're holding the mortgages. So the feds or somebody, CMHC, has to be involved in order to make that work, or it's a different type of building.
Yes, and no one's going to build apartments if they're going to lose money. That's the bottom line. It's a business. But the key thing here is getting that meeting set up in the next few weeks between the county and the town, So we're on that, correct? Yes, and I'll speak to Mayor Blair about that as well.
Madam Mayor, if I could just finish off one last
Yes.
thing. An apology to Mr. Fox. He's correct. There is a framework that has been presented to council. Yes, it was some time ago. To clarify my frustration is we do not have an enforceable framework at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just, I'm not going to belabor it, but we did have that community plan, and this is part of our community plan. It just hasn't been finished yet. And after the discussion, et cetera, I support moving forward with this development. I have a couple of questions about it, though. The speed limit on Yonge Street, will that be changed? I can't remember what the speed limit is up there at the top of Yonge. Is it
50.
50? It's 50, okay.
50.
I got to slow down. So,
That's why we issue a lot of tickets up there.
okay, that was just humor, by the way.
It's funny. Yeah.
When is this development going to be built? Do you have any indication? It's something I would have loved to have asked the developer. Is this something that they're going to sell off as a development agreement, or are they going to develop this? And when is this going to happen? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we don't have a timeline at this point.
Okay. And lastly, this has to do with just the protocol of the motion. When you look at the motion, Mr. Dolter, you read out that there's two provisions. One is a stormwater management and the other is the landscape plan, but they're not in the motion. Does it have to be in the motion for the developer to be held accountable for those?
No, I believe
in the development agreement.
It is in the development agreement itself, correct. So it is, those stipulations are within the development agreement.
Okay. I just don't, when I read through the development agreement and this concern that's being brought about water, right? Okay, so because I don't know what's going to happen with the water management plan, but let's say it's put into the storm water management system of the town. And when water comes off 15 acres of developed land, and because I don't know what it's going to look like, enters those pipes, it's going to put a big stress at the bottom of the hill. We already know that under extreme storm conditions, those pipes can't hold the volume, and so it burst out onto the street. So, that's not explained in the development agreement. It just says that they have to hook up in a way that is kind of, in alliance with the standards of the town. So, can someone just quickly address that? Because that's going to affect my vote. I'm concerned about the stormwater management.
Yeah,
I don't see a plan, and that's always a shortcoming for me. But so if someone just wants to speak to that.
So, Mr. Browning, when you had to step out, we did talk about stormwater coming down Yonge Street. And to be honest, I didn't really know exactly where this stormwater was headed, if it was out Yonge Street at William Barnhill, or how that was going to go.
Well, this particular development, we are waiting to see at least a preliminary stormwater management plan, because even we're looking at this from different perspective. It may have impact even on what the roadway and walkway construction will be in order to accommodate the actual on-site stormwater management plan itself. If you take a look at the concept plans that they have, I mean, you pointed out, whatever these be 3 ponds, now there's going to be 1. We'll see what kind of creativity they come up with their engineering firms that they've retained or whatever, to see what they do with their plan itself. Typically speaking, it's a preliminary one that gets included with the stormwater management plan that won't be deviated in any substance when it gets to be finalized. So we're still waiting on that ourselves.
Yeah, are you as concerned as I am about having too much water coming down the hill through the stormwater management?
This one single development, not so much, but when you start looking at the other ones that are planned for in the area, it starts to compound a little bit, up more than a little bit. But this is the type of thing, I mean, I can't really comment to any real certainty without seeing anything of what they're actually hardcore proposing and planning at this point in time. And so until we do, we can offer to the developer the feedback to such things, considering the future developments that are going to be coming down the pipe itself. So we're not just compounding.
Right. So will you note my concern, please?
I most certainly will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Graham?
I'd just like to thank our solicitor for his advice on my question, and Councillor Talbot for his wisdom and experience. Given both those, I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Okay, and Councillor Talbot?
Again, it's around the affordable housing, and I like, not that I don't what Mr. Dolder said, I probably will disagree with the amount of the impact, because when we talk low income, we're not talking about a free unit, we're talking about a unit that's below market price, and we're not talking about half the building, so, and I've heard the contractors use that argument, but I'd like to see some concrete proof. I'd like to see pricing without the low income, and then what it would be with the low income, so we'd have some factual information to make these decisions on, because personally, I can't see how 4 or 5 units would be a deal breaker.
Well, and Madam Mayor, if I could, so I would agree with you, Councillor Talbot, if it was 4 or 5 units. Again, I heard the word 30% used. So again, it depends on to what extent we're going. 4 or 5 units in a 80 or 90 unit building may not have an impact. But again, if it's 30% of the units, it certainly would. Interestingly, I was talking to one of the developers a while ago, and I actually said it'd be great for you to come talk to council so you could talk about the cost of building a building, to go through that, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions on, I mean, I think they are profitable in the long run, but there's a lot of money up front that does get spent. And I think it would be valuable for council to understand what that is. And again, I'll go back to the developer and see if they would do a presentation for council just to give them an idea on what building, the cost of a building 101, just so people can understand what's involved.
Thank you. And Councillor, 9 years we've been talking this, 9 years. 9 years. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just a comment on what you said, Mr. Dolter. The biggest question for me in that discussion would be the low interest rates that are being offered by the federal government to get money, that the savings of that is then to be applied to the construction of the building to allow for lower cost units to be built at the standard of all the other units. But my question is the savings in interest over the lifespan of the loan, is it sufficient to convert how many units from market rate to below market rate? That's the kind of thing that I want to know. I want to know the financing behind it.
Yeah, and I think through the
So I'll leave it
CMHC
at
process, that is detailed on how there's a calculation that's done, and they have to guarantee and control the tenancy as well too, to make sure those are permanently, and they're monitored by CMHC. That's the other issue that comes into play here, is that, we can, without CMHC or typical agents involved, it's very difficult, so I do 15 units in a building, it's below market rate. From town staff, it's very difficult to make sure that when that tenant that got that low rental cost, when they leave, whether or not the tenant that comes in is going to get the same. CMHC has a system to control that. We don't have the ability to control that in our the current setup, and that's the challenge that we'd have to face, is how do we monitor, and we certainly aren't set up for that at this point, and I'm not even sure if we have the authority to monitor that, other than the fact that we can ask for those units to be constructed, and preliminarily we probably have the 15 units, but within 10 to 15 years it may, I'm not sure how many we would have left, so that's the challenge.
Right, and the concern with this building, of course, which I started out saying is 281 units. I mean, a fraction of those wouldn't have, so much money is going to be borrowed and invested in this property that something at a low interest rate will be a huge savings to the project, and some of that could be passed on in the form of lower rent to the occupants. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay, Council, you've heard the proposed motion for 730 Yonge Street. It has been moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Pryor. Are we ready for the question? Okay. All in favor of supporting the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. There'll be a 14-day appeal period from when it appears in the paper and on social media platform. When that is set in motion, the 14-day appeal period begins. If no appeal, then the decision is approved. Thank you. We're moving on to item 4B, request for decision 245 Robbery Street. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So an application from Tier 2 Properties on behalf of the property owners 4329522 Nova Scotia Limited to amend the existing development agreement as amended to permit a fourth pad mount site with a footprint of up to 158 square meters or 1,700 square feet, and permit a reduction of available parking to a ratio not less than 4.7 parking spaces per 93 square meters or 1,000 square feet net leasable area. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is be it resolved the council amend the existing development agreement on lands at 245 Roby Street to permit the construction of a fourth pad site at 245 Roby Street, PID 2014845, and reduce the overall required parking spaces on the site to a ratio of not less than 4.7 parking spaces per 93 square meters or 1,000 square feet of net leasable space, subject to the applicant submitting a letter from an engineer confirming the amount of stormwater runoff from the site, and that the applicant and the town's urban forester prepare a planting plan that meets the satisfaction of the town's development officer.
Thank you very much. I'm looking for a mover, please. Councillor Pryor, seconder. Councillor McGrath. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, I just had one question. Is there a limit to the number of these pad sites that can be put on a parcel of land that size?
Yeah, I think we had originally set this one at 3, and now this is the 4th. Mr. Fox, I'm not sure, is there an overall limit on, I think it's based on the square footage of parking that's left, or the square meters of parking. Ms. Conley?
Yep, I can take that one for sure. It's more of a factor of the parking that you would be requiring to provide access for people to park on the site, as well as the stormwater management. Can the site actually accommodate or deal with the stormwater flow that could be there? What do you want it to look like? It is with the development agreement, so the town has that flexibility to not follow what would normally be required in the land use bylaw. So there is, to answer your question short, no, there is no limit, but it is more of a factor of what makes sense based on all of the factors that we consider when we look at these developments.
So, it's one of those, it depends.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Council, you've heard the motion, moved by Councillor Pryor, seconded by Councillor McGrath. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Again, there will be a 14-day appeal period from when it appears in the paper and social media. Then the motion is set forward, and if no appeals, it is approved. Thank you. We're moving on to item 4C, request for decision, the Central Nova Scotia Tourism Development Society operating agreement. Mr. Dolger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Central Nova Scotia Tourism Development Society, the CNSTDS, has been formally established as a not-for-profit society under the Nova Scotia Societies Act. With approved bylaws, an elected board, and a signed memorandum of association. Incorporation approval is pending with the Registry of Joint Stocks. The society has selected an inaugural executive director and is completing the administrative steps required to begin operations. To formalize a partnership between the funding governments, Colchester, Truro, Stewiacke, and Millbrook, the CNSTDS, an operating agreement has been developed. The agreement outlines the governance structure, funding model, and reporting obligations that will guide the society's role as a regional destination marketing organization. So key provisions within the operating agreement that is attached for council's review. The purpose, the CNSTDS will implement a strategic tourism expansion plan, also known as STEP, and future regional tourism strategies. Funding, each partner will collect levy revenues and remit them, less administrative costs, to the society for the marketing and development initiatives. Financial overview. The annual budget, business plan, quarterly reports, and audited statements are required with the full transparency and partnership review rights. Governance. The society operates independently but remains accountable to partners. Conflict of interest and procurement legislation applies. Other terms, limits on staffing, borrowing restrictions, and clear procedures for the termination or withdrawal. The agreement establishes a balanced framework of independence and oversight, ensuring transparent use of levy funds while enabling CNSTDS to develop coordinated tourism marketing, event attraction, and regional destination development across central Nova Scotia. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is be resolved, the council approve the operating agreement as presented, and again, the full operating agreement is attached for council's review.
Thank you. I need a mover, Councillor Talbot, and a seconder. Councillor Graham. Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. And that took a long time to get done.
Yeah, it is.
Things come to those who wait, I
Yeah.
guess. Thank you for that. Item 4D, request for decision, application to amend utility rules for water conservation agreement. Mr. Dole.
Yes, we did refer to this decision earlier. So this is the application to amend the water utilities rules for water conservation measures. The town wishes to have the ability to implement water conservation measures to protect the water reservoir from becoming depleted, and to allow it to recover over the fall and winter months to ensure there is an adequate water supply going into the summer of 2026 and ongoing from there, obviously. In order to enforce water conservation measures, the schedule of rules and regulations for the town's water utility needs to be amended. This schedule sets out the rules that apply to customers of water utility. At present, the schedule does not have any provision permitting the water utility to impose water conservation measures. Over the past few years, many municipalities have added such a provision to their schedule of rules. The new rule would allow the water utility to issue water conservation directives, and any customers who would not comply with the directives could have their water services suspended. This would be an effective enforcement mechanism. Any changes to the schedule of rules has to be approved by the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, the RAB, which is formerly the Utility and Review Board. A resolution of council is required to be submitted to the RAB along with the application. The draft wording of the water conservation rule to be added to the schedule of rules and regulations is attached in Annex A to this RFD. And Madam Mayor, I will read that. So it says the proposed new Section 27 of the Schedule of Rules and Regulations states that water conservation directives. The utility may issue conservation of water directives to its customers if, in the opinion of the utility, such directives are required to permit the utility to provide reliable continuous water supply to all customers served by the utility. During such time as these directives are enforced, the customers who do not comply with the directive may have their water services suspended until such time as they agree to comply with the directive or upon suspension of the water conservation directive, whichever occurs first. Such customers shall be required to pay for the charge of reestablishing the water services as laid out in the approved schedule of rates for the utility. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is, be it resolved that the application be made to the Regulatory and Appeals Board on behalf of the town of Truro Water Utility for the amendment to add Rule 37 to the Schedule of Rules and Regulations of the Water Utility to include the directive attached as Appendix A to the RFD.
Thank you very much. Looking for a mover, Councillor Fleming, seconder, Councillor McGrath. Any discussion on this? Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have some questions about the enforcement or execution of this in order to know exactly what it is that we're voting for. When it says that these directives are enforced, customers who do not comply with the directives may have their water service suspended. How are we measuring who is complying and who is not? Is there is the plan to have a cubic meter restriction? You know, every customer is entitled to so many cubic meters per month or per billing period. What is the?
Well, just to be clear on that matter, we can't be absolute with this because every circumstance is different depending on when we catch it. So there might be a threshold where it's a little less from like normal consumption to what, say, desired reduced consumption would be versus a more drastic. The more drastic, the more, perhaps, I don't want to use the term, but heavy-handed we may need to be in order to ensure that we get, the result that we need. We have the ability to monitor water meters on the fly, not have to actually go and physically read them. So there is that. I've been speaking to other towns and municipalities of just that very topic, as to just how they enforce it, what do they do, how do they get the information. A lot of times it's the neighbors who want to follow the rules and want to do the right thing, and pointing out the ones who don't is what seems to be bringing the people's attention to it, and then an investigation occurs as to just what exactly they're doing. In this particular case with ours, we still have a bit of time before this can come into effect. So at this point in time, we're looking for a motion from council to proceed with petitioning the RAB to include such a clause in our utility agreement, so that should we need it, it's there for use. And so there is nothing in, as you saw within that clause, there's nothing that's absolute that says we will, this is spell out X, Y, and Z of what the restrictions are, or what we're doing to measure them. So that's certainly circumstantial as far as what measures we'd be putting in place to do or measure, like how much reduction we're looking for.
Yeah, and then, and part of the process, we have to put in place once we have the ability to do this, we have to, there's, a system of warnings and things like that, that we would go through before we would cut water off. One of the discussions we've been having, we're going to have to have some further discussions and looking at what other communities are doing for commercial users as well too, because everybody looks at high water users, and we have to look at balancing what the requirements of the water supply are versus people conducting their normal course of business. So that's something else we have to look at on how those restrictions would work. So again, we're going to look at the process, and as Mr. Browning indicated, what other communities have in place, because we're not the first ones to do this, and we already have been talking to some of the communities that have processes in place, and we'll look at those, model those, and modify where it makes sense for us.
I'd like to also add, just for perspective here, pretty much all of our neighboring utilities have this very clause in place, in fact, almost to the exact word. Cumberland County, Town of Pictou, Town of Trenton, Town of Westfield, New Glasgow's going through a new water rate study. This is going to be implemented into theirs. Municipality of East Hants. So everybody around us, this is nothing new. And just as far as to, I guess, nip a question before it's asked, just as a little bit of a history. Your current water utility agreement is dated 2013. The first time that this clause showed up in any other water utilities agreement was approximately 2015. It was a smaller town, as I was told, or smaller water utility within the province that had concerns with their quantity of source water and even quality. And they felt the need that, geez, we should have something in our agreement as a mechanism to kind of put some conservation measures in place. They petitioned the UARB when their agreement was coming up for renewal. UARB agreed that's a great idea, put it in. From then, everybody else followed suit and put the same thing in. And so right now, it was essentially a timing on our part as to why it wasn't in previous one. And we think of it right now, or whatever it is pertinent, that we kind of get ahead of it and not wait for our water rate review and study and that type of thing to get this put in just because of current circumstance.
Right, and I appreciate that the other municipalities have this, and if I was a councillor of those municipalities, I would be asking the same questions of if they were adding it in. You did say that there is nothing absolute in here, and I appreciate that, but that is also largely my concern. When I see wording that says, of the opinion, like that, I don't necessarily need an absolute of, it's going to be this amount of restriction, but we should at least be thinking in percentages, guidelines, benchmarks, something other than the opinion of the water utility. Now, I may turn to our solicitor to ask his opinion, because he has a legal mind and the experience to say so, but I have concerns about this water. Mr. Thompson, would you also share concerns about that wording?
I don't.
Okay.
As Mr. Browning indicated, this wording is contained in almost every more recent schedule of rates that the UARB, or now the RAB, has set for water utilities. So we would be perfectly in sync with other municipalities. And I think that it is fairly general for a reason, because different circumstances are going to require different measures. You know, it could be as low end as, you know, don't water your lawn, don't wash your cars. I mean, that's pretty, we've seen a lot of that around the province this year. Or it could get escalated from there if things become more serious. So it's pretty difficult to set that out in the rules themselves. And I do think that, you know, in the opinion of the utility, really comes down to the Director of Public Works to make that final assessment. And I think that it makes sense because they're going to be the ones who are best placed at the time when these things are required to make that call. I don't think it's going to be very straightforward or a good idea to require council approval, for example, in those situations, because things do evolve quickly. So I don't have any concerns with the wording as it stands.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Thompson. Okay.
Thank you. I still have concerns. You know, if we have a directive that says, don't water your lawn, don't wash your cars, but the car washes can still operate because we can't hinder their business. If we are relying only on a complaints-based system to track this, then somebody who wants to water their lawn in the middle of the day gets called out. Somebody who's running their sprinkler in the dead of night doesn't. That's an unfair system. It's ripe for abuse for people to try to get around that system. And I really do think that some sort of, when we have the ability to monitor the water meters, I do think that there is a better means to measure effectively, fairly, and justly who is actually abusing or ignoring the water restrictions. Thank you.
I've had extensive conversations with Director Browning about this and the CAO. In my opinion, I think it's a good thing. It's preventative measures. Hopefully we won't have to use it, but to have it in place so we don't, if there ever was a situation where we didn't have it, it could be serious. So I look at this as a good thing. Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, well, we have the water meters, so, you know, we should be able to verify what we're going to charge people with. But in my opinion, very quickly, this should be a slam dunk. You know, with the changing weather patterns, we need this tool in our toolbox.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've had the motion's been made, it's been seconded. I'm going to call for the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. Item 4E, request for decision facilities capital reallocation. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is to deal with the 2025-26 capital budget for facilities, which includes a $260,000 contingency. So snow guards were installed on the maintenance shed in Victoria Park at a cost of $10,256. The work was done last year, but the invoice was paid in this budget year. In June, the second floor of Town Hall required an HVAC restoration after the discovery of pigeons in the ducts. The capital portion of that work totaled $16,098. Again, that was unplanned work at the beginning of the year. The heating system at the library has been failing and requires a new circulation pump, along with other components to function properly. The work was established or estimated to be approximately $60,000. This request is to approve the reallocation from the facilities contingency budget to fund these three projects totaling $86,354, leaving $173,646 in the contingency budget. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is that Council approve the reallocation of capital funds from the facilities contingency budget to the Victoria Park Snow Guards, the HVAC restoration at Town Hall, and the library heating restoration for a total of $86,354.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. Pigeons are costly these days. Okay, Council, you've heard the motion, so I need a mover, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pryor. Discussion? Councillor Graham?
If you have the information available, and you may not, I didn't give you a heads up on this, but I was just wondering, do you know how much we spent in our contingency budget last year? Through you,
No,
Mayor,
I don't, no, we don't have that. And we've kind of changed the way we track this year as well, too. We had some projects, I think we usually run with about a $400,000 facilities capital budget. Again, but the way it was being tracked last year, I can't tell you what that contingency was. We budgeted this year for certain projects, and the 260 is what we had left over, knowing that we would end up having to take on some additional projects.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just for clarity, Mr. Dolter, for people that are listening online, snow guards, I think I know what they are. They were installed last year in the maintenance shed to prevent snow from sliding off the shed onto the front.
Yeah, they're common
building.
with steel roofs because as soon
Right.
as it starts to warm up, the snow slides off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we're ready to take our vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. Item 5 on our agenda is our in-camera summary reports. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in the month of October, we met 3 times in camera, October 2nd, 23rd, and 28th. All those meetings involved a legal issue to be discussed.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, I do request that council meet in camera after today's meeting to deal with a couple issues.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's taken a long time to get here, but here we are, our committee reports. After each report, council may ask questions, and then we'll ask for a motion to approve the reports after everyone has presented. Our first report is from our CAO, Mr. Dolter.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, this is my new report format that continues to evolve. So the first item is dealing with council focus and engagement. So this is a joint council meeting with the Rec Board, which occurred on October 14th. So the Rec Board Chair presented to the town and county councils about the rec and board activity and plans. The councils were provided with an overview of the financial results from the 2024 Nova Scotia Stampede, with a reported positive balance of $190,000. However, we'll point out that included in that total was $287,000 in funding from the Provincial Economic Development Fund. As well, the meeting itself overall was productive, with council asking the chair about some of the ongoing issues with the rec and the NSP operations. And again, there was no decisions made at the meeting, just a general briefing on where things were going. The next areas involve community and strategic initiatives. So the African Nova Scotian Community Strategy Committee meeting that took place on 2 meetings in October 2nd and October 20th. The Strategy Committee continues to meet regularly to discuss issues affecting the community. The community has agreed to a process similar to the one we used for the naming of the No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility for the naming of the Ford Street Park. Staff will assist the committee in the administration of the naming contest going forward. So again, similar, we're going to particularly involve the schools to look for a name for the park itself. There was a previous name proposed, but again, we do wish the community to be involved in this, and the strategy committee certainly agreed that that was a necessary step. And again, we will have information provided to the community on that, and what you have to do in order to submit a name. So that should be following shortly. No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility dedication, which is happening this Saturday, November 8th. The foundation for the memorial for No. 2 Construction Battalion was completed last week. The installation of the monument and the storyboards will be done, I say today, but we now know that that will be, the memorial itself is going to be installed on Friday. And like council, I'm a little bit nervous about that date, but again, it is the day before. But the storyboards are being installed, and the landscaping is being completed prior to the installation of the monument itself. And again, we will proceed in order to make the deadline to be ready on the 7th for the ceremonies on the 8th. The monument will be unveiled and the facility dedicated number 2 construction battalion on the 8th at 2 p.m. There will be a reception following the dedication at the Truro Golf Club. And again, we encourage members of the public to come out to that. This is a great event and has been a long time in the planning. So I'd like to thank those that were involved, which is the African Nova Scotian Community Strategy Committee, the Black Cultural Center, Public Works staff who put in the base for the monument, and Parks and Rec staff have been obviously involved intimately and will be doing a lot of landscaping work. And 2 of our staff members that did a lot of work on this, particularly securing the federal grants that offset some of the cost for this, Allison Grant and Megan Burgess. And if you see Megan Burgess Council on Saturday, please thank her for the work she's put in. She's going through a few fits right now because she's waiting on the final details of this. But again, I think it's going to be a great event, and we understand the community is very interested in coming out to it. Unfortunately, the weather is not looking great, but we have got tents on site in case it does rain to protect everybody so they can still enjoy the event. Review of the current year capital forecast, had a meeting on 21st of October. Director of Corporate Services is leading a new review of the overall capital projects. An overview will be provided to Council at the December Council meeting on where capital stands with estimates on where we should be at year end. There is a detailed breakdown in your package today as well, but again, we will be providing estimates on where we think we'll be to year end in December. Any funds not expended this year will be recommended for carryover for some projects that are delayed and didn't happen this year, or will remain in the reserve for projects that came in under budget. And there were several projects that did come under budget, so again, that is good news. Not all projects go over. So other notable meetings that we've had, again, we referred to this in some of the other earlier discussion. Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, we are looking at accessing that for the work that needs to be done at William Barnhill Drive, and we had a meeting on the 1st of October to talk about that. So staff are developing a proposal for the next round of funding under the CHIF program, which I believe opens up at the beginning of January. So the idea would be to have shovel-ready project ready for submission, and as soon as the program opens up for application. So we're actually working towards that now, with several developments projects proposed for the town lands adjacent to William Barnhill and Yonge Street. Funds for road construction, road and infrastructure will be key in controlling costs and allowing greater affordability for development, which should lead to the construction of more affordable units. And again, as council is aware, typically roads in subdivisions are the responsibility of the developers, but obviously in order to keep units affordable, when we had a lot of discussion about that previously, federal funding would certainly help in making that happen and make sure the projects move forward. So again, we're focused on getting an application in for this particular project in this round. Again, I need to address the revoking of the Central Nova Scotia Civic Centre Society's operating agreement on 29 October. So this situation is well known to most at this point, given the releases provided by both the town and county of Colchester last week, and the media coverage that occurred as a result of that. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details. However, I think it's really important for the public to understand that this decision should not impact the daily operations of the REC. And again, we're focused on making sure that it's business as usual with that, and that it's there to serve the public. We'll continue to work with the society and the REC staff to forge a path that ensures the success of all facets of the operation. We had a meeting on the provision of specialized police services on October 29th. The police chiefs and the chief administrative officers from Amherst, New Glasgow, and Sellerton met with myself and Chief McNeil to discuss the provision of specialized services within the region. The meeting was to explore the options for the provision of emergency response services within the northern region. through a team made up of existing municipal police departments. The aim will be to sign memorandums of understanding between the interested departments to provide these services, as opposed to having to rely on a third-party provider. The ability to access emergency response capabilities is a requirement of the new policing standards. We believe this is the best way to ensure a reliable and reactive service for the area. These models are operating successfully in other areas of Canada. So obviously, as this evolves, we'll be bringing information forward to council for whatever approvals may be required. But I believe in most cases the MOUs are within the chief's right to sign in order to meet the police standards as they are operational issues and covered under the Police Act. So again, we are moving forward, and we had some very good discussions as well. From a strategic initiatives communications perspective, just going to highlight a couple items here. The equity and anti-racism strategy. While the consultant's contract ended in July, it was felt by regional staff that the documents required revisions before they could move forward. So staff identified several issues, including the use of non-local stock photos, language that focused too heavily on the town of Truro rather than the regional scope, and statements that needed to be fact-checked. So staff leads have since reworked both documents to ensure they are accurate, regionally focused, and accessible. A joint presentation will be prepared that will be delivered to councils, after which the strategy will be brought forward for formal adoption. This is now expected to occur in November, so at the Committee of the Whole meeting in November, we expect to have the draft document for council's review. And again, I did talk with the CAO with the county as well too. CAOs, I think, are going to have some further discussion on a couple issues that have arisen. So again, we'll have that discussion and factor that into the Committee of the Whole presentation. Public transportation. So as everybody's aware, the town and county are developing a regional public transportation feasibility plan, and Arcadis has been working. The consultant has been working through public engagement, and which has been completed. Staff from the town and county have continued to meet with the contractor to narrow in on a project objectives and further define the coverage areas for Truro Colchester. An information item has been presented at the October Committee of the Whole. Following that meeting, 2 pop-up sessions were held on October 25th to gain additional feedback from the public. Arcadis will work through November to present a draft report by the end of the month. The draft report will be presented to the stakeholder working group for feedback, and then it will work its way back to council. Again, it's been fairly quiet, but the urban deer management, the controlled hunt is underway and will run until early December, weather permitting. So the hunt on the town's additional sites got underway in mid-October. To date, approximately 35 deer have been harvested for 2025. The town continues to collaborate with Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources, Dalhousie, Feed Nova Scotia, and Millbrook First Nations on the program. And again, as always, we'd like to thank those partners for their continued support. The Recover Initiative. So the town continues to collaborate with the Recover Initiative through its building transformation program to investigate retrofit of the Market Hall on Yonge Street. So at this point, the RFP has been issued to hire the consultant to lead this project. Once the RFP closes, the proposals will be reviewed and a consultant hired. And we are aware that that RFP is going to close on the 17th of November. So we'll move forward and with that project as soon as the consultant's in place and everything is working together. Climate Risk and Resiliency Plan. The town's Climate Risk and Resiliency Plan is now underway. This study is expected to be delivered in the fall of 26. The Climate Risk and Resiliency Plan will assess the town's vulnerability to climate change impacts, including extreme heat, flood, wildfires, invasive species, and storms, and develop strategies to mitigate risks and build resiliency. And the project's being funded through the FCM Climate Ready Plans and Processes program. The town's strategic plan biannual review. So staff are working to develop a biannual review for the town's strategic plan, which was approved by council in May of '25. Staff are reviewing priority actions outlined in the 2025 and providing updates. This will be presented to council in the November committee of the whole meeting. So, Madam Mayor, there are other social media information provided there for council review, just to highlight those. And the funding program overview is also provided for council's information. And that is my report, Madam Mayor, respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. And I see some questions. Deputy Mayor Thomas?
I just have one question for you, Mr. Dolter, and that has to do with the urban deer management and that new pilot, the new pilot site in the urban part of the town. Do you have any numbers in regards to?
I think I'm going to defer to Ms. Grant. I think she has the numbers on that.
Yeah, most of the 35 came out of that site. I don't know the exact number, but the majority of the 35 have come out of the urban site. It was very productive this year, being that it was our first year. That site is now closed, but the feedback from people in the area has been really positive. So
It's interesting, though. I live about 2.5 blocks from that site. I always had 2 deer on my property all the time. Now I have 4 all the time.
Oh.
So, anyways, I'm hoping for better results for me personally. Thank you.
In case you're wondering, Deputy, my herd of 7 are still safe, so. Councillor Graham?
I have 2 questions. The first is with regard to the provision of specialized services for Truro Police Services. Do we expect that to result in an increase or a decrease of their overall budget?
It should really have no overall impact. It depends. I mean, if there is a training requirement which we feel we can have funded jointly by the different departments involved. We don't see any significant increase. Again, there will be an annual training requirement, but that would be built into future budgets. For this year, it should have minimal, if no impact at all, because there's a number of steps that have to be gone through. I guess the major point about this is that from the police review's perspective, when we say third party, if that were to be the RCMP, we likely would have to pay a standing amount for the provision of those services, and that number is yet to be named. So that would have a definite increase in our overall costs. If we put this together, there would be some increase for some training that would be required, but when we required the services, we'd only have to pay then. And in the last 30-some years, Chief, we've used the requirements of the team twice in 30 years. So again, should have a minimal effect, but if it's required, it should provide good response, and we have the ability to control the costs.
Great. I have a second question, and it's with regard to the work that Arcades is doing on the public transportation study. I hear the results were overwhelmingly successful with a lot of participation, and congratulations to the team who went out and did that. But I also know it was very short notice given that the pop-up sessions would be happening, and many people didn't get a chance to go out. I was wondering if there will be an opportunity for people to view the proposed maps and complete the survey online.
Yeah, so this is the second round of engagement. So a lot of people were able to participate in the spring as well. But the pop-up sessions were really well attended. So we're working with the county right now to develop an online option. We're hoping to have that rolled out this week, and it will run for about 2 weeks. We are getting to sort of tight on the timeline, so we're really hoping to get something out, and then we'll really push it over the next couple of weeks so people can participate that way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I do hear the pop-up sessions were really well attended, so well attended that some didn't want to wait in line or couldn't access the maps to view them. So if they are available online, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Talbot?
Yeah, I just wanted to add just a couple of quick comments on the specialized services. We're going to be obligated to have specialized services, period. Right now, the exchange agreement allows us to negotiate with neighboring municipal units. And if in fact we can negotiate agreement via that option, it's probably going to be cheaper than having to buy it from the RCMP. But either way, this new agreement looks like they're going to force us one direction or other. Our preference is to negotiate with other municipal units.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next report is Corporate Services. Director Russell will give her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The attached financial statements provide an overview of the financial position of the town of Truro operations up to the end of September 2025. As of the end of September, total revenue is $35.9 million, representing 90% of the annual budget. Property tax, road preservation tax, solid waste charge, and downtown Truro partnership line items are at or slightly above 100% due to the final tax bills being issued in September. Deed transfer tax is at 119.4% of budget, due in part to a large commercial property being sold during the month of September. Other grants in lieu. This is the final number for the year and is higher than budget due to the HST offset grant being higher than expected. Services to other government. Millbrook and Westville revenues are fully booked for the year, and the County of Colchester is lower than you might expect due to certain charges only being billed annually at year end. Revenue from other services offered. Victoria Park is at 136% of budget because the pool generated more income than expected, primarily due to the exceptionally hot summer. Other revenue, interest earned is at 99.7% of budget, indicating that our budget was conservative. Miscellaneous includes insurance proceeds received this year for last year's expenses, pushing that line item significantly over budget. Provincial other is at 77.9% of budget because we received an unbudgeted grant related to active communities. For expenses, at the end of September, total expenses amounted to $17.3 million, representing 43.4% of the annual budget. We are halfway through the year. A few variances are further described. So for under general administration, grants of $370,479 were paid year to date, which is 73.9% of the budget. Finance system costs of $53,281 is over budget by $2,000. And this is an annual bill, so that's it for the year. Under police services, professional development is at $36,392, or 67.4% of budget, primarily due to the purchase of ammunition for annual firearms training and qualifications. Vehicle expense is at $139,039, or 66.9% of budget due to the equipment and supplies for the vehicles. Under engineering and public works, professional development is at 89.6% of budget, driven by subscription renewals and attendance at conferences. And traffic management is at $159,718, or 64.36% of budget due to seasonality, higher use in summer and fall. For parks, recreation, and culture, the ground maintenance and repair, Victoria Park Pool, and active community are all seasonal expenses, with higher expenses being incurred year to date than expected in the winter. Also included in the package is the capital budget report. This report reconciles the budget set at the beginning of the year to an adjusted budget, so council can track the changes approved to date through requests for decisions. The values in red font are included in this month's council meeting under old business. Values in this report are shown at total cost. However, some of the purchases will be partially funded by grants. $3 million, or 24% of the $12.8 million adjusted budget, has been spent as of September 30th. Under procurement, there were 2 tenders awarded in September. New doors at Douglas Street Recreation were awarded to R&D for $11,900, and the Climate Resilience RFP was awarded to East Point for $87,580. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, so thank you for your report. Moving on, we're going to go to our Fire Chief Services report with Chief Lois Curry. Chief.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council. Last month, we received 78 calls, 2 fires, 2 car fires, 9 motor vehicle collisions, 10 alarms, 49 medical calls, 1 chemical spill, 1 gas spill, 3 campfires, and 3 door breaches. The fire inspector's reports for last month included 7 inspections, 5 follow-up inspections, and he completed 4 investigations. The month saw a very successful fire prevention week at our schools, along with a few station tours, and we roughly reached about 500 kids. Fire training for the month was in breathing apparatus, ladder truck maintenance and setup, and our officers also attended our safety supervisor training. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, seeing no questions, okay. Next, we have our Planning and Development Report. Director Fox, if you will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is the council report from the Planning and Development Department for the month of October 2025. In terms of planning projects, Atlantic Planners Institute API Conference. Staff attended the annual Atlantic Planners Institute Conference in St. John's, Newfoundland, Labrador on October 22nd to 24th. The theme of this year's conference was Weathering the Storm, and topics included the emerging application of AI, artificial intelligence in planning, navigating the housing crisis, and adapting to climate change. Second item there is an update of the town subdivision bylaw, which was mentioned in my last month's report. So staff have undertaken a review of the town subdivision bylaw, and this bylaw is quite old now. It was last updated in 1998, and it forms part of the community plan, and needs to be updated to ensure the document aligns with the current provincial legislation and the objectives of the town's community plan, the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. Planning applications, we currently have 9 applications active, 1 at 656 Yonge, 1 at 730 Yonge Street, 1 at 373 Roby, 1 at 67 Inglis, 1 at 37 Braemar, 1 at Rexdale Ford and Marshland, 1 at McClure's Mills and Lower Truro Road, 1 at 245 Roby Street, and 1 at 423 Roby Street. We have 3 site plan approval applications that are currently active, 1 at 161 McLean, 1 at 9 McLean Street, and 1 at 43 Willow. For building statistics for the month of October 2024, we were at $36,005,776. For the month of October 2025, for this year, we are at $37,597,849. Bylaw enforcement activity for the month of October, we had 47 active files. 12 of those have been resolved. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any questions for Director Fox? Ian McGrath, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Fox, for your report. Just when we're talking about the update to the town's subdivision bylaw, I know that we had discussed previously some of the other bylaws that needed updating, like the streets bylaw that was decades old, as I recall, still mentions, unloading of coal on the sidewalk and things of that nature. Do we have a plan in place for getting those other bylaws updated as well? Because I know we talked about this probably 2 years ago when I first got on council. We were talking about bylaw updates. Is that
I can only speak to the bylaws within the planning department's sort of purview, so I don't know about the streets maintenance and care of bylaw. I'm not sure if there is a plan to update that.
We're looking at a general review with each of the departments to take ownership of their particular bylaws to work through those. Again, they do take some time, but we are looking at moving those forward, particularly the ones that are higher priority. And there are a number that are completely outdated that we'll bring for deletion again. So that is ongoing. So I know you're going to ask me for a date.
I am.
So
You know that.
yeah, that'll. As far as, and I think part of our strategic session, we do the updates, we can have that discussion with the council. It does take quite a bit of time to update bylaws. So, and again, with everything else going on, particularly for public works over the summer and, construction season, it's, again, it takes some time. So let's discuss that when we sit down, even for the committee of the whole, we can have that, and I'll have a chance to talk to department heads on when realistically we can start delivering some of the amended bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Our next report is from Truro Police Service. Chief McNeil, please.
Thanks, Mayor Hinton. October's report is as follows. We had 29 motor vehicle collisions. We issued 114 summary offense tickets under the Motor Vehicle Act, conducted 7 road safety check stops, responded to 7 noise complaints or bylaw type complaints, 1 impaired driving investigation, 1 drug investigation, 11 calls for Liquor Control Act and Trespass Act, 67 mental health and well-being calls, 23 fails to comply with core conditions, 13 crimes against persons, 12 assaults, and 31 thefts. Property damage and disturbance calls were 13, 1 break and enter, 3 forgery or fraud investigations, 85 suspicious person or vehicle calls, 17 alarms, and 152 other calls for general assistance. Total of 687 calls for service, 121 of those resulted in charges. There were 22 parking tickets issued and 39 speeding offenses respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Chief. I don't see any questions for you today. You're getting, oh, what'd I do? Deputy Mayor.
Chief, I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to meeting these provisions for specialized services, do you think that those standards can be met through MOUs with existing municipal police services in the region?
Yes.
Okay, because some of them are highly specialized, right? Yeah. But thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Deputy. Now we're moving on to our Director of Public Works, Oliver Browning. If we could have your report, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hinton. I trust you've all the opportunity to read my report. I, at this point, will provide the monthly highlights for the month of October. So as you've all observed, construction has been completed on the asphalt street milling and street paving projects during the month of October on Willow Street, Martha Avenue, East Prince Street, from Wood Street to Aberdeen Street, George Street, as well as Prince Street from Commercial Street to Pleasant. Construction continues on Cobequid Drive by Dexter Construction Company Limited. Replacement of sections of sanitary sewer continue to progress. The directional drilling installation of the new storm sewer line from Cobequid Drive down to Clifton Court has been completed, and the date of substantial performance of contract remains December 23rd, 2023, or 2025. Our department has issued 61 working within town right-of-way permits to date in 2025, with 9 issued in the month of October. Department staff has received 30 service requests from residences and other town departments during the month of October. The department has completed 178 service requests over the year to date. Our environmental services crews have substantially completed the work associated with the installation of a new 1,200 millimeter diameter, 85 meter long storm sewer line within the area of McDonald Street to alleviate localized flooding within the immediate area. Finished landscaping and reinstatements that can be completed this year are progressing. Our environmental services crew also set aside hydrant maintenance throughout the month of October just to tend to other matters as mentioned. The water crew responded and effectively repaired 3 water service leaks, which included 2 at Intertape Polymer and 1 in Millbrook. Sanitary sewer and municipal water service tie-ins were completed for a new development on Yonge Street, as well as a new water service installation for a property in Bible Hill. The crew also made necessary adjustments to manholes, catch basins, and valve covers along Prince Street prior to the asphalt paving of that section. As Mr. Dolter discussed within his monthly report, our transportation services crew completed the construction of the No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility Monument Site in October. The monument itself is due to arrive on site, as we understand it, and be erected this week. Transportation services crew have placed over 605 tons of asphalt patching for utility cuts, potholes, and other various streets within the town year to date. Only 9 ton during the month of October, which included reinstatement of the existing asphalt walkway at the East Prince Street railway tracks. They also repaired 48 meters of concrete curb infrastructure within the town this year to date. Concrete reinstatement from various utility cuts and maintenance in the town will continue periodically through the fall. Department staff work in conjunction with the Department of Parks, Rec, and Culture on the completion of the new Ford Street Park. Underground electrical conduit for the site's light standard has been installed, and the concrete walkways are scheduled to be completed in the coming weeks. Finished landscaping on the site will be completed in the spring. Work to progress the town's asset management program has recommenced with compiling of data of the town's sanitary sewer system. The town's water treatment facility continues to operate as intended. Due to the near drought-like conditions experienced this summer, department staff are monitoring water levels within the town's reservoir as we have in the past. Water levels continue to be observed to be lower than previous years, and the voluntary water conservation order that was issued in September is still in effect. Department staff are continuing to monitor the water levels and determine what further measures are required to be taken. The addition of the water conservation clause into the water utilities RAB agreement, as we've discussed, affords the town the ability to implement additional measures as necessary to prevent further compromise of the town's source water supply. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank you for our daily briefings on water. It means a lot to me. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Browning. Question regarding your asset management plans. Where are we? Sorry, let me back up. You are doing asset management plans on streets, sidewalks, others, inventory. When it comes to the sidewalks, are staff noting accessibility concerns? We've had some emails come in recently, I believe you've received as well, regarding missing curb cuts or sidewalk or crosswalks that just end in a curb. Are those being noted as part of that asset management review?
Not explicit, but in part, yes, because it's part of the condition evaluation of a section of sidewalk in itself. So it speaks to shifts of panels, cracking, those types of things, which do inhibit or compromise the accessibility nature of the particular sidewalk itself. As far as measures, we'll say new measures of new standards being developed or implemented, that's something we need to look at and to incorporate as to how this factors into our asset management program. Was it fits into the condition assessment? Is it a separate item outside of what we're looking at? So traditionally what has been done is, as part of the evaluation of prioritization, condition assessments are done on sidewalk and curb. Sidewalk specifically, there are certain criteria and things that we look at. Similar, I'm going to go off a little bit on a tangent because it's a similar type of thing. This topic of accessibility with regards to like asset management, with regards to condition evaluation, we're also looking at this as how we incorporate it into our facilities asset management evaluations, because this too, what we're looking at, and a similar type of thing, does it live within the condition evaluation or is it its own evaluation? How do we incorporate it appropriately and properly so that it does get captured and gets recognized within a prioritization type of an evaluation? There hasn't been anything as far as, we'll call it like industry standard of an asset management type of protocol blending these two yet, but I think with what initiatives we're taking as a town to date, why not lead the charge with it?
Oh, I'm all for leading the charge. While we're on the topic of tangents, because I do love a good tangent.
I've noticed that. Jeez, that's why we get along so well that way, hey?
We do. When it comes to accessibility with regards to sidewalks and to facilities, what impact does the adoption of the regional accessibility plan that was a couple of months ago that was presented and adopted by council, what impact does that actually have on operations? Like, how does that change your day-to-day?
From what we looked at it to date, day-to-day, not much.
Okay.
Most of this stuff applies to new construction. So anything existing, like, remains. I don't want to say it's grandfathered, but it remains. When a certain, when a renovation or a rebuild hits a certain level of substance, then these things need to be incorporated in. But minor repairs or repairs of isolated sections, it's difficult to incorporate the full standard when we're dealing with something existing. So really day to day, there's not much impact.
Okay, but going forward, this hopefully advises us and prepares us for new construction, make sure that accessibility is top of mind. Because I wanted to ask, because this council before me, but council adopted an active transit plan 2.5 years ago, which I still haven't seen funded. I don't want to be sitting here in another 2.5 to 3 years asking what's happening with the accessibility plan, where, are we seeing any benefit of it? Because I feel like that plan we might not see, right? Active transit, that's a very, very tangible thing that we would actually, be able to reach out and touch and see, but I don't know that we would see the impact of the accessibility. So I wanted to ask about that. We've already talked a lot about water conservation. I'm not going to go into that anymore. did want to ask, and I don't know if this is you, maybe I should wait, but it would possibly you, possibly fire, possibly CAO. There was talk about fire road access in Camden, clearing an older road for access in case of wildfire and things. You've got a look on your face that says this is not you. It'd be CAO Dolter and Chief Curry, I assume.
So this is a project, I think there's some work that was being done through Parks and Recreation, I believe, actually.
If it's what I'm thinking of, I mean,
Yeah.
this is kind of yeah, and this is sort of even beyond the grant. I mean, this is kind of a collective initiative or effort between Fire, Parks and Rec, ourselves, Ms. Grant beside me as far as developing an overall fire plan and looking at the landfill and those types of things in that area. We've met twice.
Yeah, so, there was, I mean, I think there was an initiative, we were looking at clearing one of those roads, and I think the work had been delayed. Again, I'm not sure where that stands now.
Yeah, we received a quote for it, so you'll see that in the next budget.
Okay, so potentially next financial year, next summer, we possibly see something happen there.
Yes.
Okay.
If it gets through the budget process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. 3 in the queue, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton, through you to Mr. Browning. Crosswalks being painted for Remembrance Day. Can you give us an update on that, when it's going to happen? Hopefully before the 11th.
Take a look out the window.
Are they done? Perfect.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. No, we were actually expecting to have those done early this week, but jumped on them earlier just with the pending rain coming in tomorrow, so.
Thank you.
I haven't checked them out myself, but go have a look and just.
I will.
Let me know.
Yeah, so, this is a project that kind of came later than we expected, so we're doing what we're doing for this year, and then we'll look at next year to be a little bit more ahead, to be, we've had a extensive discussion on some of the specialized painting. One of the biggest concerns is that they look really good, but it's not highway paint that's being used.
No.
It does present a bit of an issue, so, yeah, we're gonna look at that, and we'd like to thank the town of Stewiacke for their stencil, because we did get a stencil from Stewiacke. And we will look at, what we're going to do, and we'll present something to council, I think, well before Remembrance Day on.
We're just going to know we're going to do it next year. We're not
Yeah,
gonna wait.
well,
We're just
yeah,
going
we'll put in a standing thing similar to the Pride sidewalks
Great.
for it to be done.
Great. Thank you. One more thing, filling of the Argus ball field, has that started, or?
So it's, we met with Dexter Construction last week, just as a kickoff meeting on site. Just gonna wander around with some particulars as what they had planned to be able to tackle the work. Probably about mid this week, they'll start dewatering the ponds. Their plan is to start bringing in fill and starting to infill starting November 12th. But as that time approaches, that'll get tightened up more. But that's the expectation is from last week, was that they're gonna start the 12th.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, I guess I do have little concerns around some of those crosswalks that the accessibility is really challenging, and I'm certainly not in a position where I can assign work to staff, but I would really like to see us get an inventory on, which ones are bad, and have some type of plan to do it, because I don't feel that it's fair to the community to say that a person with disability will have to wait until we're working on something to prove it. Like a couple of those complaints that come in last week, were kind of heart-touching, and people should be able to get across the street. So I think it'd be prudent if we did a bit of a review and tried to tackle the most desperate ones.
That was actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Councillor Talbot, because that was actually something we discussed about 2 weeks ago, as far as taking inventory of some of these crosswalk locations, because there are some things where there's concerns of, I guess, level of accessibility with them in themselves, and also crosswalks that perhaps are not necessary or not safe to be in locations that they are. Particularly, you notice in some intersections around town, and specifically just up the street or whatever by Queen and Louise, where we have 2 sidewalks at that intersection where really we only need one. Just to give you a bit of backstory here, not to take up too much time, but a few years ago, we actually went and removed some of these side-by-side crosswalks around town, only to have our line painting contractor later inadvertently go and repaint them, thinking that, oh, we need to go and put them back. So, but no, our plan is to go and take inventory of these, and just as you say, as you suggest, we're gonna look and see, okay, what levels, are there some that we need to remove, and are there things we need to improve with them and make it happen?
I think the one thing, if I could as well, is that, council often gets faced with, we need to put a crosswalk in. Crosswalk is not just paint anymore. So it does have to be, it's a crosswalk, it's a curb cut, sidewalk going in, because again, if there's a grass median there, we can't, even if we cut the curb, we have to have a way to get, somebody with mobility issue across that. So again, I think we do need to factor all those things in, and as well, particularly with a crosswalk, you got to make sure that you're not putting somebody in a bad situation in an area that they could get caught in a wheelchair or some other mobility device. Again, it has to be safe. So again, I think we have to reevaluate that. We probably have some sidewalks or crosswalks, sorry, in areas that simply don't make sense because they were for people that didn't have mobility issues. So we need to look at that and be smart and how we do it, and we got to make sure that they make sense and are designed properly.
That call we received last week was very concerning, that you're referring to, Councillor Talbot. Yeah.
And I do agree with that, but I mean, I did do a tour a while back on one of the motorized scooters, and like, there's a number that don't meet grade, and they should, we have to meet grade, because otherwise, people with mobility issues just can't transfer across those places. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Pryor?
I'm going to ask you about the one on Douglas Street. Going down, starting at Douglas Street, going across Young Street, which is a very busy street.
Mm-hmm.
That one really needs to be looked at, in my opinion.
It does indeed. That's one of the, another example of the side-by-side crosswalks at an intersection, and in fact, that specific one, the crosswalk on the northern side does not have a pedestrian ramp on the, would it be the west side of Young Street? That was one that should not be there. It inadvertently got replaced, hence why there's no pedestrian. The pedestrian ramp on the east side itself is for crossing Douglas Street and then crossing Young Street on the southern side crosswalk. That's the safe one.
But the lady that tried to cross obviously didn't realize on the other side there was no way to get onto the sidewalk.
Yep. No, and this is the very reason, like, we'd like to take inventory of these here, because there's others scattered around town just like that, I mean, you can't look at everything all the time, and I really do appreciate these types of, like, reports and phone calls and inquiries coming in, because it does help us go make tallies of these types of things so that we can start doing our inventory like we say. So no, it's much appreciated pointing these things out.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councillor. And that woman that sent the complaint in about that intersection you referred to, I reached out and called her myself because what a great citizen she was to help that person, because it could have been a very serious incident. So, yeah, so we're on top of that one, are we? Yes? Okay, good, good. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a little continuation of the crosswalk discussion. I wanted to note that according to the Motor Vehicle Act, a crosswalk exists at every intersection, whether it's marked with painted lines or not. So we can say that it may not be safe, and there are certainly places that are legal crosswalks according to the Motor Vehicle Act where I would not want to try to cross at. But for where we have these, we really should be working to make them safer. And I'm not sure what the impact of these side-by-side crosswalks is other than an extra liter or two of paint. You can expand on that, Mr. Browning, I'm sure, if you wish. I don't see that as a huge issue, rather than forcing pedestrians to take longer routes just to get to their destination. Especially when we're talking about people moving under their own power or assisted power, perhaps. We really want to make life easier for them, not harder, right? Whereas if I'm in my car, I've got all the power in the world at the press of a button, or the flex of a foot, I guess, rather. I can take those extra meters or kilometers even fairly easily. But when I'm on foot, if I'm pushing a stroller, any of that, it should be easier for people moving under their own power to get around. Regarding the inventory, would that, do we want to encourage people to call in as they have been, or sending more emails with issues that they've noticed? Would that be of assistance to you, sir?
Can be.
Okay, we will advise people to do
properly.
that. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Our final report today is from Director Ashley Sims from Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff attended the Recreation Nova Scotia Conference in Cape Breton, with the theme of the conference being Rooted in Relationships, Celebration, Community, and Connection through Recreation. Sessions focused on connections and building stronger relationships to create a more unified, resilient, and impactful recreation sector. General maintenance continues throughout the downtown area, parks and trails, while seasonal sport field maintenance is winding down as the sport seasons progress. Stadium 1 baseball field successfully hosted the high school provincials, where CEC boys captured their second consecutive provincial title. And construction of the new asphalt pump track at the Rail Yard Mountain Bike Park is well underway and progressing as planned. October was another busy and successful month at the Colchester Legion Stadium, highlighted by the highly anticipated home opener of the new Senior A Bearcats hockey team, which drew a sold-out crowd of 2,280 spectators and made an exciting start to their inaugural season. Both the CEC boys and girls hockey teams also enjoyed strong attendance and community support at their home openers. At the No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility, Truro Minor Football's Friday Night Lights events have returned to our new facility, and the games were a huge success. All town facilities have received their annual inspections. Brick masonry repairs at the Truro Police Station were completed in-house, and it has been reported for the need to replace deteriorated sidewalk blocks around the station. Pigeon spikes have been installed on the east side of the library as a temporary measure, with long-term solutions under review. Seasonal winterization has been completed for the Victoria Park Pool, Splash Pad, Bike Wash Station, and Victoria Park's seasonal washrooms. A total of 985 trees have been mapped through the tree inventory update. Hemlock woolly adelgid treatments scheduled for October were canceled due to the drought conditions and will resume in spring 2026. In total, 340 trees over 10 hectares were protected in the spring. Also in Victoria Park, vegetation and erosion maintenance continues, with 27 beetle-affected spruce trees removed, and fall bulb planting took place late October, and work over the Woodall Fall Stairs is underway. Street tree hazard and Dutch elm disease contracts are ready for tender, with 52 trees scheduled for work, and this is 60% fewer than last year. The town hosted a table at the downtown Truro Trick-or-Treat event on October 26 at Civic Square. Over 300 businesses and organizations participated, and they saw over 750 kids going through the square. Our community drop-in programs are running continuously. Our evening hikes were originally scheduled to begin on October 27th. However, due to the growing demand and popularity of the program, we actually had to make the difficult decision to transition it from a weekly series to a pop-up format. This program thrives on the commitment and dedication of our incredible volunteers, and as the interest grows, it continues to grow, we want to ensure that we balance and respect our volunteers' time and their energy while maintaining a safe and high-quality experience for all the participants. For a complete list of our programs, please contact the Douglas Street Recreation Center or visit the town's website. In preparation for Remembrance Day, the veteran banners have been installed. This year, we are pleased to announce an additional of 9 new banners for a total of over 210 veteran banners throughout town. In recognition of the important community dates and events, the town of Truro commemorated Mi'kmaq History Month, Treaty Day, Fire Prevention Week, World Mental Health Day, and Diwali. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. Very good report as usual. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. Through you to Ms. Sims. Can you give us an update on the heaters for the stadium, when they're going to be fixed? The ones outside, like for the stands?
In the stands?
Yeah.
We just need to go get them inspected and see what needs to be done and if we can afford to do that this budget year or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Sims, for the report. I will say that you and all of the senior staff have done a great job of answering most of my questions in advance. I've been a little quieter today, I think, than normal, but I did want to ask the new asphalt pump track, well underway, progressing as planned. What is the planned end date?
The update after I finish this report, actually, it is the asphalt is done. The crew has left. They are going to return in about 2 weeks to add the safety stripes, and I think someone was doing some landscaping as well today. So 3 to 4 weeks we should be open.
3 to 4 weeks. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Deputy Mayor Bill Thomas.
Yes, Ms. Sims, someone asked me about the ratio or whatever of seasonal staff to full-time staff or whatever, and I couldn't answer that question. Could you answer that question for me? Do you still have seasonal staff, and how long are they on for, and that sort of thing? Do you mind?
Our layoff date will be the first week in December.
Okay.
And throughout the year, we have 23 maintenance staff, and during the winter, we are down to, we cut that number in half about.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. No further questions. So now I'm going to call for a motion to accept all the reports today. Councillor Talbot, second Councillor Pryor. Any discussion on any of these reports? All those in favor of accepting all the reports today, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, reports are accepted and motion is carried. Item 7 is question by members. I would just like to start out and say that finally, after 3 attempts, we are now going to have our 150th anniversary get-together of a soup lunch on this Sunday. So I expect to see all our happy, smiling councillors there, serving up soup and rolls and I think little treats, little sweets or whatever. And it starts at 11 a.m. at the Truro Fire Station and goes to 1 p.m. So hopefully, is this also on the town website? Do you know, Mr. Dolter?
But yeah, so I think it's been promoted on several occasions.
And of course, we have our Remembrance Day beautiful service as usual. And to have 210 banners of our veterans in the town is a beautiful thing. I can say that. And they're having a Highland salute to veterans at the Truro Legion on Brunswick Street, starting at 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, November the 9th. So that's after our 150th anniversary lunch. And they're going to have the Gaelic pipers and drums from Pictou County and the Truro Concert Band. So hopefully people can attend that. I see Councillor McGrath, you have a question by members.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to follow up on previous discussions and emails starting back in August regarding the removed not a crossing behind the Truro Centre Mall. And I had requested that we meet with CN with follow-up on that. I've had a lot of questions and comments from members of the community regarding the loss of this crossing, and again, acknowledging that it's allegedly not a crossing according to CN and Transport Canada, but it has been used as such for decades, as has been mentioned. One gentleman, and very fit, 6'4", I think the gentleman is. Very, he's tall, he's fit, he moves quick. Taking the longer route adds over 8 minutes to the trip to go from that direct route at Park and Brunswick versus going either other direction around. So for somebody who is not as mobile as them, or me, somebody who's pushing a stroller, somebody who's trying to get groceries or do their shopping, that's going to be even harder for them. Are we going to meet with CN representatives and our MP to discuss possible resolutions to replacing that crossing with something that is safe and legal?
I guess, Madam Mayor, I do need direction on that. Does council want us to do? I certainly understand Councilor McGrath's concerns, but really I haven't received direction from council to set up the meeting, or whether or not council is prepared to entertain, or the cost of putting in a alternate crossing or negotiating with CN to that effect. So I just need some clear direction on that.
I know at the conference coming up this week for NSFM, Mr. Bateman is going to be presenting, I believe, on Thursday afternoon. That might also be a good time to discuss the impact of what that has done on for the community. So where do we stand on this, council? You've heard the, Councillor Pryor, I see your light's on. You've heard what Councillor McGrath has asked for. You want to jump in there? And
I would support meeting with CN, finding out what can be done, because that crossing has been there for a very long time, and just to take it away without even trying to find a solution, I feel it's unfair to the residents.
maybe what we should do is, I'm just thinking, at this point in time, maybe we should speak with Mr. Bateman on Thursday, have the opportunity to speak with him, express our concerns, and then would you be prepared to bring it back next month? Because I'd like to hear what he has to say, and we can certainly say now that you've brought this up, that we've discussed this, and we want to give them a fair advantage just to explain the situation.
If Mr. Bateman is open to a meeting during NSFM, I would happily entertain that. I do think I want to make sure that we have all of council's buy-in on that, because this does affect the community.
Okay.
And I do hope for council support. I do think we would also need to loop in MP Hurtle at some point, because as you know, Transport Canada and the feds would have more oversight in potential funding for being able to help us to resolve the issue.
Okay, and I see that we've got,
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, if we can get a motion just to arrange the meeting and give vote from council to make that happen.
so does somebody want to make a motion that, I'm certainly open to it, Councillor McGrath, Councillor Pryor, and whoever else is going to NSFM, wants to meet with Mr. Bateman, who's doing a presentation on Thursday afterwards about the crossing. Would someone like to make that motion? Councillor McGrath would, seconder, Councillor Pryor. Okay, any discussion on that motion? Okay, Councillor Pryor, your light's on.
I'm good.
You're good? Any further discussion on that? Okay, so all in favor of the motion?
Just one,
Yes.
I'd say at NSFM or otherwise, because again, we may
Yes.
not be able to get Mr. Bateman at NSFM.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, okay, the motion is carried, so to make that understood, I'll reach out to him prior to the meeting and ask him if he can have a little time for us to meet after his session, okay? All right, perfect, we're good on that. Okay. Is there any further questions by members? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item 8, new business. Item 8A is a request for decision for Heritage Advisory Committee request. Mr.
So,
Coulter.
thank you, Madam Mayor. So at a meeting on the October 1st, the 2025 Heritage Advisory Committee, they received a request from the Colchester Historian seeking access to Truro Council meeting minutes from 1950 until present for digitization and long-term preservation. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is be resolved that council release the town council meeting minutes from 1950 until present for digitization and long-term preservation by the Colchester Historian.
Okay, I need a motion for this. Deputy Mayor, seconder. Councillor Fleming. Okay, discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. Okay, something actually older than I am, actually. All right. Now we're moving on to item B, request for decision, noise control bylaw exemption.
Yes,
Mr.
the
Goldberg.
exemption, yes. So we have an application from Karen Irving, property owner of 87 Curtis Drive. She's requested an exemption for the town's noise control bylaw for a private event taking place on Saturday, July 4th, 2026, for a small wedding ceremony and reception in her backyard. Ms. Irving has requested a temporary noise exemption for a live band proposed from 8 p.m. to midnight. And Madam Mayor, there is a document attached in which she has most of her neighbors in the area that have signed, and I guess we'll find out if somebody didn't sign it, because they'll be the ones that complain. But anyways, so we do have all the signatures of her neighbors, not to make light of the situation, because she did follow the proper process. So the proposed motion is, be it resolved that council grant an exemption from the town's noise control bylaw for a private function with a live band to be held at 87 Curtis Drive on Saturday, July 4th, 2026, from 8 p.m. to 11:59 PM.
Calling for a motion. Counselor Pryor, Counselor Graham, any discussion on the motion? Counselor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on Mr. Dolter's comment, if we do go ahead and approve this exemption, is there a period for appeal by any of the neighbors who may not have signed this petition?
No, I don't believe there's an appeal period now.
No appeal. So if we go ahead and there are people who haven't signed and haven't been invited to the party, we're likely to hear from them and they have no recourse?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Who's to say that the town of Truro stands in the way of love? Not today. There we go. All right, yeah. Love in the town of Truro today. All right, beautiful. Yeah.
I get a point from my eyes.
You go. Okay. Moving on, item 8C is our appointment of our deputy mayor. The deputy mayor attends functions if the mayor is unavailable and works and supports with them in support with the mayor. It is now this time of year that we appoint our deputy mayor. I would now call for nominations for deputy mayor. Councillor McGrath, I see your light on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If they are willing to accept the nomination, I would like to renominate Deputy Mayor Thomas to continue in the position for another year.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Pryor will second it. Deputy Mayor, you have been renominated. Oh, well, I didn't even get the question out. Is it that fun working with me, Deputy? Yeah. Are there any further nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor? Calling once. Calling twice. Calling 3 times. Seeing no further nominations, I would say that Deputy Mayor Bill Thomas has been renominated and appointed. Oh, the fun we'll have this year, Deputy. Little round of applause for Deputy Mayor. All right, so here we go, and I think we're almost ready to end for today. So we are at the end of our public council agenda. I want to thank our council staff, our CAO, our solicitor, and those present in council chambers today. Our next meeting, public meeting, is on Monday, December the 8th at 1. It has been 1 year this month, the council, since we took our oath and were sworn in as a new council. I want to thank each of you and our staff for our support. Mr. Dolter, would you say we've had a good year, you and I?
Yeah, it's been very good, Madam Mayor. Thanks. It's not done yet.
Yeah, it's not done yet. And I want to give special thanks to Stephanie Rowe, Michaela Carroll, Megan Burgess, Allison Grant, and Edwina Renault, and the IT team who keep me on track. It's been a very busy and hectic year. Continue to be kind to each other and to our town, and to our veterans and our military. We owe you a debt of gratitude for your selfless service. The November 3rd, 2025 Truro Town Council meeting is adjourned at 4:11 p.m. We are adjourned, and thank you.